how many of us have did our homework on that, but stayed on here. You've done your job through the budget process. Y'all more detailed. You know what my homework is? $5 or $10 decrease making headlines that we lowered something. What's your homework, Ms. Galloway?
That we were supposed to over all of our.
I'm listening. You got the flow. You kind of nodded like you had did. Oh, I ain't did all my homework yet. I thought you was ready. Okay, because if not, I'm going to ask that this master feast discussion item stay on there as a special order. And my homework is done. You know I'll find some master fee prices and drop them $5 or $10. I'll ask for what the overall impact would be in a fiscal year, but I sure will make headlines because I'll try to move a vote to lower the master fee schedule on residential water rates and maybe even commercial. So Mr. Newsom, you done heard what the chairman say, but I don't carry no weight except if I get to talk sometime. So I'm looking at a $5 to $10 drop. Give me an analysis of the impact if I do that with residential, whatever. But you'll convince me not to, and I'll try to convince myself to try to change the master fee schedule. The next special order, if there's no more discussion on that one, get ready, y'all. I don't want to leave it on here too long, but Janelle, I would leave 180-420 on the agenda for the next Finance Committee meeting, the special order master fee schedule. The next special order has to do with the Police Sergeants Union's retiree insurance. You got a retired police sergeant here, Sergeant Adams, Gary Adams, and so he called something to my attention, and I asked that it be put on here as a special order. What I can gather, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, it was the Emergency Manager Order number 20. And from what I'm understanding from Mr. Adams here shortly, if not already, he could lose some health benefits. And so I wanted to refer this item with the details to Finance. I wanted to refer it to the police, what would this be, Sergeant's Union Representative, Mr. Branch, to the City Administrator, and to Ms. Wheeler Legal. He left us with a copy of that order, correct?
I think it's attached.
And if that order is attached, Janelle, supplemental material. So I would like for that to go to each one of those people who I named. Mr. Newsom's office, Mr. Branch's office, Ms. Wheeler's office, and I named somebody else, the Police Sergeants Retirees Union Representative. And so Mr. Adams is here, but Mr. Adams, briefly, what is you finding out as you dealing with this emergency manager order in retirement? Can you just briefly tell us what it is? Could you stand up and identify yourself, move close to the table?
My name is Gary Adams. I was a Flint police officer for 24 and a half years. I retired from the department in 1999 after 24 and a half years, and it was my understanding that I would have my Blue Cross Blue Shield for the duration of my retirement. Just last year, Cornerstone has contacted me and informed me that I will not have Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance coverage next month. So I have talked to Cornerstone a number of different times. I contacted Congressman Kildee's office, and they did some research. I think Councilman Eric Mays has provided that, or will provide it to those that may be looking over my concerns. So we did not pay into the Social Security system, Social Security Medicare system. So, and I had presented that point to Cornerstone a number of different times, that doesn't matter, it seems. So, in order for me to have any healthcare insurance, I will have to pay an exorbitant amount of money, to have any, Medicare coverage. So, I'm coming to, the city council to see if if I can get any relief.
Thanks, Mr. Adams. So what we gonna do, we gonna refer it out because it's the emergency manager order number 20. I don't know which order stayed and which is repealed, but that one might be one that stayed because it dealt with some legacy costs and that type of thing. So by the next finance committee meeting, I'm gonna leave that on there. And I'm gonna leave 180421 on as a special order. It might end up moving down to a discussion item, but right now I'm gonna leave it on for 2 weeks as a special order. And, Mr. Newsom, Ms. Wheeler, all of you, if by chance you get a chance, by the next finance committee meeting, tell me what this is from the documents we have. Ms. Wheeler, you already know? Okay, we'll make sure we'll provide the copy to the 4 people that we name. And if you need more than the 2 weeks, when we get to 2 weeks, you'll tell us. But we fixing to try to see what we can find out as it relates to that. Ms. Fields?
The way this special order is worded, I'm very unclear because when the RTAB left, they repealed all the EFM orders. Okay, so how does that relate to this? Is that
Well,
what
that's
was
one of
just
the questions
discussed?
that we ask him. We gonna find out. We don't know. That's why those different entities, that's one of the things that I guess will be looked at.
And one
Ms.
other
Fields,
question.
First, Janelle got her hand up.
That's why I closed the RTAB order also, so somebody can interpret that, because I don't really know.
Ms. Fields, continue.
Make sure we get copies.
Well, I actually had this explained to me by Fred Hedden, that any of the work, like an ordinance or whatever that an EFM created or did, or a contract or something, that those aren't repealed, but the EFM orders themselves are repealed. So I don't know how that order relates to this,
Yeah.
and I think it's clear administration needs to do some research, because
Yeah, I predict with
you're
the-
not keeping every word in your mind. Quit slacking.
I predict with the application of it as it relates to legacy costs, but then we'll see what can be talked about if it stays in order. Can anything be talked about?
And I wasn't
So-
quite through. I have one other thing to do with
Because
that.
I'm finna move to this last
Okay,
special
it's
order.
very
Go
quick.
ahead, Ms. Fields.
Okay, this is kind of a point of information, once again, because I missed some, meetings.
You don't have to do the point of information, you got the floor.
Because I missed some meetings, I'm not sure. Have the police sergeants come to us with, as I understood it, they were in the process of negotiating their contract again? Is that still in negotiations? Have they brought to us?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, timing-wise, is the reasons we should be talking. Go ahead, Mr. Newsom.
I can provide that update. We are fairly close to having both the sergeants, which is one bargaining unit, captains and lieutenants, which is another bargaining unit. I think that we can probably get it done within a month or so. But it has been a bit of a challenge coming to this point. We're pretty close, we're not quite there yet in terms of the
I would hope.
final terms.
Okay,
I would hope that if you weave this in, it don't hold it back another month, but I don't care if it do. This could hold it back another month. Ms. Fields and then Mr. Griggs.
well, at this time, I would just like to remind this council that when it was brought to us for that raise for the general police officers, okay, I raised the issue and tried to find out, well, who else is gonna be bringing up negotiations, because
Make it, we were close, we gonna find out. I wanna see what 2 weeks bring us. If you put something out there, Mr. Griggs, and it passed, that's how democracy works, but for right now, this is where we at. Ms. Galloway?
You know what, I was looking through the emergency management order, and I just didn't see, a date in here, but I'll wait until the next meeting.
Mr. Adams, you got a fighter on your team with
Yeah, I didn't see a date ending everything, so.
Councilman Griggs ready to fight for some fast action for you, so you got some support so far. Ms. Galloway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You good?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so we gonna move to the next special order, and that one is 180422. This one is a special order, Goyette Mechanical. It was requested by Councilperson Galloway. And Ms. Fields, you had requested a special order, but I keep telling you, I think you're gonna be satisfied addressing it in those hearings. Ms. Galloway, go ahead.
Actually, Mr. Mays, Councilman Mays, I'm sorry. I think I would like to, have this special order, postponed and moved to Mondays, and I'll tell you why. I specifically asked for Mr. Gilchrist, because he was part of it, and I would think that AECom would be, the one that could speak on this. And I'd also like for someone from Goyette to be here. I did not get, a copy of the bid or proposal from Goyette's original thing. I do have what they submitted, I don't know if the administration does, so if that's proper, I would like to.
I would say this, I mean, who am I? That's your agenda. You the vice president, so you control the agenda of, special affairs, I would think, Ms. Galloway. So if you decide to put it on special affairs, but what you asking is a long thing for special affairs. If you had them people come into special affairs, you better be ready. That ain't really not the right agenda for what I'm hearing. But I don't object to it, but you would really have to cut it short and keep it in. What if you only heard from one or two of them and all of them was here? That's a heck of an order.
Well, the thing, Mr. Mays, Councilman Mays, mine is very specific, so the scope shouldn't be outside of what it says on
If you
here.
wanna move it from, this to, special affairs, I have no objections. But it seemed like you want certain people there. And so,
I asked for certain people to be.
and so you said you asked for Mr. Gilchrist to be here. You asked for somebody from Goyette.
Right, well, Goyette, we weren't sure, I didn't know if it was gonna be on here,
But you,
but definitely AECom who oversees.
well, AECom, but also, you know, I think you got Brian in purchasing and you got Mr. Benzick here. Brian gone, so you got that new guy. What's that new guy name? Hispanic.
He hasn't been appointed yet.
Okay, so nobody in purchasing right now. You don't know about purchasing, do you? The point is this, if I'm reading your special order correct, I've had conversation about addendums or attachment to a bid. My question is gonna be, when you bid, do you have to use the forms you're given, or can you add stuff to it? That might be a question based upon what I see you talking about here. And that might be a legitimate question. Some people who understand the bid process say you have to give one bid, you can't give an alternate bid and things of that nature. Mr. Benzick, you know what we're talking about as it relates to the Goyette bid?
I have an idea.
And so you've got a legitimate request. So I have no objection moving it to, special affairs. If that's your committee and you wanna put it there, I have no objections. So I would ask that it be dropped from, Finance Committee, and, Ms. Galloway, if you choose to try to now put it on special affairs, this would be a time. Okay, so that would be the business there. And I would say to the administration that Ms. Galloway is asking that Mr. Gilchrist be at special affairs. She wants a representative of AECom at special affairs, And she also wanted, who else?
I would like Mr. Wilcrest and, someone from AECom, who is supposed to be overseeing.
Those
contract
two.
relationships.
And then,
I would like Willie.
Mr. Benzick and Mr. Newsom, I think it'll be beneficial for y'all to be here as well. And if you know what's being alluded to as far as any alternative or additions to that original contract bid, this would be the bid dealing with restoration or service line.
I believe it's the,
See, because I think I'm referring to the
I mean,
restoration
the
bid.
service line, no, it's.
Goyette has two.
Yeah, it's not,
So
it's not.
it ain't what I'm talking about, so they don't have to come equipped with the, even though I might get to it later, they don't have to come equipped with the restoration bid, so she's referring to service lines.
Correct.
And is this in relationship, what you say, mister, it
It's at
do
the
say
end of the
service
special
lines,
order.
I see. I don't read sometimes, it's good, Mr. Winter. So that's what that inquiry would be about, service lines, special affairs. You sure gonna have to manage it quick and fast. The request has been made loud and clear, and so we'll see what happens, Monday.
Mr. Chair, I
We
have
going to
a question.
resolutions, Ms., okay, before we go to resolutions, Ms. Fields?
I would like to inquire of the city clerk, when we have a special order and we want particular people to be there, as Ms. Galloway just stated, does the clerk's office have the responsibility for contacting that person? Who actually contacts these people and says your presence has been requested at this meeting or special order?
Unless we're instructed to do so, we do not make that, we do not make the direct contact with the person. And normally it's the administration, if it's the administration, then they normally, they have to sit and do, if they do,
Do we have to actually make a formal request for administration to have these people here? Because I know we've had special orders where we're expecting someone to be here and they're just not here, and come to find out they didn't even know they were supposed to be here. So I think it's important we
say-
clarify that.
Let me say this. Ms. Brown has spoke, her answer is her answer. Mr. Branch made some sounds and I was able to hear what he said. So even though, hold on a minute, Janelle, even though I said clearly who Ms. Galloway wanted, so far we've had good cooperation. Now, if it breaks down too much, that's why I keep telling y'all, in front of any committee, any special meeting, any council, when people don't show up, everybody know we can subpoena folks, and we ain't had to do it yet. So I'm confident from what I've seen so far that folks gonna show up. We asked for Mr. Gilchrist, he showed up. We asked for AECom, they showed up. So it's a request for Monday for AECom and Mr. Gilchrist. And so I'm hoping that they hear that. And if we have to start doing written formal requests, we would ask that y'all tell us now, Mr. Branch and or Ms. Wheeler and or Mr. Newsom, and we will now switch it to a formal written request. So far, we ain't had to do that. Janelle, I'm sorry, you had wanted to say something?
Well, I will send out the referrals to
Okay.
Mr. Branch and Ms. Wheeler,
Okay.
as a reminder.
And so however we do it, it's been working. If somebody don't show up, we don't hit the ceiling, we just regroup, and we know how to get folks that usually come. Am I skipping somebody, Mr. Griggs? Go ahead.
I'm gonna back up just a little bit on the previous special order. If we could move this to Monday on this, Goyette Mechanical, why can't we go ahead and move, this retiree insurance recipient's, special order?
Because I think it's gonna take a little more research.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
Can legal come up with an emergency order number 20?
If you're talking about the fiscal emergency order, we have that now. What we're talking about is what has been asked about the order, and I don't have any of the documentation yet. And Ms. Johnson said she's gonna provide
everything we dealt with. Oh, Ms. Brown. Mr. Newsom, you had some budget, the actual stuff that we was gonna do on a special order, but we didn't. And, if there's objections to doing it right now, I'll entertain them. If not, we'll see what Mr. Newsom got to say.
So, what I will say this, I did not prepare something to present to you right now. I
Okay,
did deliver before this meeting, the actual budgets actually for fiscal 18 and fiscal 19 to your mailboxes. I also delivered the check register from November 2017 to current to today.
well, you know, Ms. Galloway and Ms. Fields is our official council finance committee auditors, and they gonna be watching and looking for that pertinent information.
So you all received an email before this meeting started, asking for a couple of things for you to review that information. This is the first month that we will present budget to actually for the new fiscal year. And we are also going to be presenting that on a monthly basis. Hopefully, you know, it's on the agenda, but presenting that information to you all, at the second committee meeting on a monthly basis going forward.
I said that as a compliment about Ms. Galloway and them being an auditor, because we have to work as an octopus as a council. And sometimes my, tentacles don't reach as far and deep in the finances as theirs. So that was a compliment, Ms. Fields.
I don't have a copy of a budget to actual.
It's in your box. It was delivered to city council. It's in your box. It's not on the agenda for tonight.
Ms. Brown, I'm gonna let you in. Ms. Brown, I'm not gonna let you. I just wanted to say that. No, go ahead. I just like to say it.
We did deliver it, we're in the process of reproducing volumes of it for you all, and by mid-afternoon tomorrow, you'll have it in your boxes, and some of it we'll have it on your email.
So we, what's your point, Ms.?
When she says
Well, hold up,
volume,
hold
what are
up.
we talking
You
about?
got the floor. You don't need a point of information.
Okay.
You got the floor.
And I'm just gonna say for the record, if it is truly that much work, I got a problem with it. There has been a recommendation that if it hasn't been followed up, as Councilman Winfrey said, so, eloquently, that we can produce something ourselves. I am not going to allow what is expected in the city charter to be presented to this council on a monthly basis to appear to be a waste of paper. There is spreadsheets in which you do not have to do all of that paper, and I'm sure that there are people in the finance department that are familiar with those spreadsheets. They are familiar with formulas, and it doesn't have to take that much time. So if our employees in the council is spending time doing papers, I wanna say for the record, I will make the biggest stink, because in everything that has been requested based again on the charter, there has been kicking and scratching and screaming about you're gonna be asking for so much stuff, and I won't be mocked as a council person. I think that what is being asked is not unusual, especially because it's part of the council. And again, for the record, there has been a recommendation, and there has been a municipality that is willing to assist us. Not that we have to do what they're doing, but assist us based on the same program that they are using as well. And so, I just want for the record, the staff to not make a copy for me of all that documentation, because that's not necessary. There are simple spreadsheets that allow you to say what it is, where it's coming from, and a little verb of what it is, pipe replacement, sludge, whatever. And so I don't want a copy of all of that paper in my box, just for the record.
Let me say this. Ms. Fields has been known to ask for detail and paperwork. My position is, if she gonna study it and deal with it, I ain't got a problem with it, but it's burdensome on the administration in some cases. Now, what you saying, I'm trying to digest it, because I'm hearing you say it's certain volumes of stuff you don't want. And
for
Did I
information.
mischaracter? No, just
No.
take the floor, go
Councilman
ahead.
Mays, I'll give you a copy, because I don't think, you got a copy. I emailed those that were interested, so that you can see the simplicity of the spreadsheet.
Okay,
If we can
And
leave
that
it at
would
that way,
suffice.
that way you will be able to see that if we get something outside of that, this is becoming,
and that's,
like, if, in my wording, it is becoming a stone wall.
I see you, Ms. Fields, and that's why I complimented you on being an auditor or a knowledgeable person in some of these areas, just as Ms. Fields, more so than I. But I'm a quick learner when I get, pointed in that direction, but I'm also, as we try to run the city, I don't want the city staff bogged down
Right.
until we know it's some real priority reason. I don't dislike a lot of referrals, but when it's a priority subject, I want detail. But, that's just me. I'm gonna come to you, Mr. Newsom, but I gotta go to Ms. Fields right now.
Okay. I'd just like to say that the budget to actual, I don't know how much volume that can take, because those are aggregate numbers. Okay, that should be fairly simple to see budget to actuals, even though we haven't received any for, I don't know, this is the 4th or 5th month, which is not good. Okay, what may be taking the volume is I had asked for, I wanted a copy of the check register, since we took the city check register off the website. And since then, I've heard of a suggestion that I think might be good, that might solve this. It should be possible, our IT should be capable of providing an internal site that we could have a password to, that we could go and see the check register, rather than giving us, a ream of paper every month.
So let me, if I may, Councilman.
Sure.
You, and, I wish Councilman Galloway was here to hear this, but
You can repeat it when she comes back.
in my email to council, my hope was that you all would give feedback on what was presented in the first place. That's number one. I want to work with you all so we can figure this out. I know she refers to municipality. I have not had time to figure out what this municipality does. I don't even think they use the same system that we do.
They use
BSNA? Okay,
Yes.
fine, so I did not know that. I had not had time to research. That's number one. Number two, I still have at least one council member who does not do emails. So I have to figure out what exactly is going to work for all of council. Okay, so that's number two.
Now, I can do email, so you don't have to worry about me now. So, hey, Chanel, can we do email with you? So don't worry about Councilman Mays, just accommodate everybody. I'm old school, but I can use email, don't we?
And thirdly, and unfortunately, Councilman Galloway isn't here, but I literally begged for some feedback. We were emailing back and forth, I think it was 2 Saturdays ago, when this, and the check register is included all the way back to when we moved to the website. So again, that exists, we have that, you will see it on an ongoing basis. But I specifically remember asking Councilman Galloway at that point, over email, that all council was copied, can I produce a summary report so you can avoid reams and reams of paper, either soft copy or hard copy? And so you can see an aggregate by vendor what we're spending through the check register on a monthly basis. I was told, no, I want the whole information. Steve might be about to me on this particular one. So I'm struggling with understanding. So my goal is to start with more information first, get feedback from you all, and work out this process. If you read the email, and I apologize because I'm just spending this afternoon playing purchasing. So I did not get a chance to get the reports out in enough time for you all to have a chance to read for this meeting. But with that being said, this is going to be an iterative process to figure out what works for 9 council members. So I apologize, it was not meant to be a stonewall, but somehow it was taken that way. So I know I have to start at a certain point where all council members have it, and then we work from there.
And
Because
most of,
working through emails and going back and forth somehow turns into taking this.
most of the charter mandates will end up getting fulfilled, but we can't let charter revision commissioners like Quincy and others come in here and push us too hard. I mean, I know they like to crack the whip on us, and they got a right to do it, but, we not gonna let them whoop us, and we ain't gonna whoop up too bad. But Ms. Fields, go ahead.
Well, I did look at the report that, Councilwoman Galloway got from, the city manager at Hudsonville. Okay, one of the key things that was different, that I don't know in terms of their volume of purchases, if that would work for us or not. But basically, what she was talking about is they receive, because check runs have to be received, which I think is similar here. Dawn or whoever has to have what is intended to have a check cut for it a week ahead of time.
Yeah, it's some number 80 process.
So what Hudsonville did and what Ms. Galloway was advocating for was the same system where you show us what checks you want to cut, and the legislative body actually has to approve all those expenditures before you could cut those.
If that's what, I'm.
That was part of it. That was part of it. I'm just
Okay.
trying to tell you ahead of time. And I don't know, I have no idea if you can compare the expenditures for
Well,
both
we
entities.
hear loud objection to having to approve it before they can cut checks.
You will shut down the city. I guarantee you will shut down the city. We have, 150 checks a week at least we're cutting. So you will cut down, you will shut down the city. If that's, I guess I did not realize, and it's something, the quick glance I took at us, and the level, the volume that they have, and the level, volume that we have going through AP, you're gonna shut down the city. I don't think that you all want to be in front of every single check that's being cut.
I don't
didn't
think so,
understand that
neither.
that's what she was advocating for, but I strongly suggest you all.
Yeah, I don't think the majority would agree to shutting down or slowing that process up. Mr. Winfrey, Ms. Fields, were you done? For
More or
now,
less, yeah.
We never
Yeah.
done, because we counsel people, we never done, but Mr. Winfrey, I ain't never done.
If my colleague will recall, this is one of the reasons why when Councilwoman Galloway presented this information from Hudsonville, I said then and I say now, it's good to get information from other municipalities, but we should create our own selves what information we want and not follow everybody else.
I agree with that.
We may want to use a sophisticated system, and we need to work it out with him, and trying to follow somebody else.
Let,
And try
let,
ourselves.
let people look at us. We the pace setters. I'm ready to move the resolutions, but Ms. Fields, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a suggestion. I think that for most of council, the standard budget to actual aggregate, okay, will suffice, but I think since we're in this unusual situation where we have all of these millions of dollars, okay, due to the state and the wind funds, the grant funds, that perhaps what we could be looking at is a more detailed, you just said, a summary of per vendor. Okay, like what have we paid AECom this month? What have we paid, Goyette this month? And for what, okay?
Yeah, we can get that information if we wanna just monitor certain payments in water. I think we can get that information. I'm really wanting y'all to move on. Go ahead, Mr. Newsom.
That's what I advocated, and again, I think this is gonna be something that's gonna be iterative, or we have a special session to really figure out what the format looks like. I want you all to have the information, I just don't have a consensus of how I want it. But I think you don't want all paper that was delivered to you. I don't think you do. And you definitely don't want to be pre-approving invoices, because we're all gonna be run out.
Ms. Ga-
But I completely agree with you. I don't know what is going to do that, other than iteratively, month by month, to get down to the point that we understand what you all know.
Ms. Galloway, you missed some relevant, good discussions. Mr. Gilchrist, this, special order on here about Goyette and service lines, nothing to do, I'm hearing, with restoration service lines. Ms. Galloway, hoping you can be here at 4:30, Monday. I guess she got questions unless you wanted to ask them now, or you
No,
want,
I just wanted to.
she wanna see if you and, somebody from AECom?
Right.
Special affairs. So Monday, if you in town or here at 4:30, I guess she wanna ask you something about that. Now, you know you can talk to him anytime, okay? Okay. Ms. Fields, I'm reluctant to call, but it's my job. What's happening?
I would like to move resolution 180425 and 180426 to council.
Ms. Fields, to my delight, has moved those two resolutions. Mr. Griggs?
I'd like to discuss that before we move on it.
Okay, but I want to know if there's a second. Mr. President,
In discussion.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
there's been a motion made and properly second to move 180425 and 180426 to council, correct, Ms. Fields?
Correct.
And Mr. Griggs wanted some discussion on that.
Yeah.
Mr. Griggs?
Do we meter sewage?
Mr. Benzie?
We do not technically meter sewage. We meter the water that becomes sewage. That's how we meter it.
But this 300,000, some of them, 150,000 is coming out of the sewer account.
Is
I
that
believe, I don't, is that right? I mean,
Yes, so that you understand, the metering portion of the Water Service Center budget comes out of both 590, 591, because the meters service both the water department and the sewer department.
See, when you meter the water, they use that amount of water read by the meter for the water actually to estimate
Well,
the sewer.
Okay, if it comes out with 25% going to sewer, then why do we want to equal charge the water account and the sewer?
It actually doesn't come out at 25% of the sewer.
What does it come out?
It's about 50/50.
50?
Absolutely. It costs more money to treat sewage than it does to deliver water.
Okay.
Typically, most municipalities are a little higher on the sewage side than they are on the water side.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Fields, Ms. Galloway.
On that line, I would just like to ask, if this is timely, who is taking over Mr. Case's responsibilities at this point in time?
Currently, Mike Brown is there. Mike Brown worked for the city for a number of years. He's an A license holder, and he's currently handling his duties. I think he's on a 60-day agreement at the moment.
Does it require an A license to hold that
Absolutely.
position?
A wastewater license, yeah.
So Mr. Case is gone.
He is retired.
They leaving left and right. If Ms. Fields, you through, Ms. Galloway?
Yes.
I had a question for you, Rob. The reading of this says that at this time, the department is requesting on behalf of the budgeted amount, it expects a complete water meter replacement program to be funded by when during this fiscal year. In the event the program is not funded and moved forward, a similar request will be made later in this fiscal year. So, can you just kind of clarify?
Absolutely. So last fiscal year, if you guys remember, we budgeted about $600,000 a year for meter replacement. We came to council and asked for $600,000, and you guys gave us roughly half. So we figured we would come and just ask for the half, and then in the event that the meter program goes forward, we shouldn't ask for any more. If it doesn't go forward, we'll be coming back sometime probably around January and asking for the other $300,000.
So, is it, and maybe it's my understanding that as of yet, the water meter do not qualify under when they're looking to see how that can be qualified?
That's yet to be determined. So we submitted our project plan to the DEQ. The DEQ has submitted the intended use plan to the EPA. We are waiting for the EPA's decision on whether they will allow funding to be used for water meters.
Okay, and then, Rob, how is the water meter replacement process working? Like, how many are we replacing?
So I'm not sure if you have the staff review, but I gave a breakdown if we went with 5/8 meters or 1-inch meters, 1.5 inches. There's also a price sheet on there. You're looking at the price sheet, I think right now. So it's determined on what we have to buy to put in. So obviously, if we're buying 4, 6, 8-inch diameter meters, we're not buying many of them because they're expensive.
No, I don't mean, I see your breakdown of what inventory you're buying. I mean, how is it getting out to the constituents?
Maybe I didn't explain that. So
Okay.
what's required determines how many we can purchase. So we don't know what we're gonna put in the system, if you're following. So if we put just 5/8 meters in, which is really not, likely, we'll put a combination of 5/8, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, all the way up to 8-inch, meters in. So obviously, the more of the larger diameter, the less meters total that we're gonna put in. So it's very hard for me to predict, what meters are gonna get installed.
And I don't mean predict, because maybe I'm confused, but since I've been on council since 2013, it has been public knowledge that the meters that are in most of the homes, not most of them, but a lot of the homes are not working, that they're past their lifespan accordingly. Does that make sense?
That's
Do you-
absolutely a
okay.
fair statement.
And so with that, I guess my question should be, because I didn't realize, my question should be, how do we know how many are dysfunctional right now? And the reason why I ask that is because that should give us some indication of how many that we need to replace. Prime example, Councilman Mays has been fighting for a constituent that had over a $10,000 bill. We know that her water meter was, and so are we finding out how many? Because by now, we should know
We know.
people have been, right?
We have approximately 11,000 that are failing.
Okay, but you're saying that even though we know that we have 11,000 that are failing, we don't actually know what size they are?
Most
Is
of
that
them are
what you're-
5/8 meters.
So
The-
Rob,
we-
maybe
I
I'm-
guess my point is the $300,000 doesn't cover 11,000.
Mr.
However,
Grant.
which way you slice it.
Oh, you're
Right, but how are
exactly
you
down. Oh, you're
determining,
exactly
that was
down.
another question. So how are you, determining who's being replaced? You know what I mean? What is the merit, I guess, decision for the city to decide if we know that 11,000 are faulty? And we are ordering 845, meters, or 845 or 540, right? What are we using as a formula to decide what we're ordering now? Because you're saying we have no way of knowing, but we do know 11,000 are faulty. I don't know if my question is,
So,
I'm really
so
just
I
trying-
think what you're asking me is that you wanna know, out of the 11,000 that are failing, which ones get first priority to be replaced?
Basically, and how many of those are being a part of this, order?
So, whatever the number is that we can purchase is what we put in the system, but they don't all go to failing meters. There's oftentimes meters that need to be replaced because they're stolen, people need to have service restored, they don't have a meter, things of that nature. So not all of what we're buying goes to just replacing failed meters.
Okay, so Rob, do me a favor. If we were on TV, I
We're on
would
TV.
say, look, I would say, could you look into the camera
I'm
and
looking.
talk to the people? No, that's a joke. But I really do want you to, express to this community that we know that 11,000 meters are faulty, which means that their bills are not right, plus or minus wrong. They could be owing a lot. What can you tell them? Because we know we don't have 11,000. What should they know right now to make sure that we can at least make sure that they're not being overcharged and or undercharged, so that their bills can be as close as possible?
So when there's an estimated water bill, there's no way to know that they're being undercharged or overcharged.
Correct.
Okay, but the actual meter itself, even though it can't transpond remotely to the truck that reads it, the register on the meter is still reading.
Okay.
They could provide a self-read. Just about everybody has a camera phone. You could take a picture, send that to the Treasury Department. We could actually use that as a read. We could do that, I mean, you could do that every month.
Okay.
The harsh reality is, the utility doesn't have the revenue to replace its water meters. That's, I don't think that's anything new to you guys. It could be new to somebody on TV or on camera that's watching, but we simply don't have the revenue to replace the water meters. I mean, that's the world we live in. And they desperately need to be replaced. It's part of our managerial, financial, and technical capability to run a public water supply.
And that was part of why we was fighting for those estimated reads that was overestimated, because they was not even sending the letters out, trying to get in there to manually read it, and had went so long. So those are some of the ones we was fighting for, and that's got something to do with manpower. Even at the time, it was emergency managers running and managing. Go ahead, Ms.
Rod,
Galloway.
last comment, you made, I didn't understand, I didn't catch your last statement. You said it's part of the basic what,
Technical, managerial, and financial capability to run a public water supply.
which means that we are technically, based on the definition that you just defined, that I cannot repeat,
Financially.
we are not servicing this community in a way that is financially responsible for both, is that a fair?
No,
Okay.
so the,
We don't have what we need to service the community, is that what you're saying?
yeah, so when you get into the financial capability of the public water supply to function properly, one of the, probably the number one thing it needs to do, right behind making sure that the water that it provides for its community is safe,
It's safe.
is it needs to be able to generate and collect revenue. And that's the harsh reality.
Well, under law, only enough revenue to run the system, not profit revenue. Some of it could include future capital improvement revenue, but it's a formula based upon the law that we set and collect revenue to run the system. Mr. Griggs, then Ms. Fields.
Okay, Robert.
Yes, sir.
I thought we allocated $18 million to water meter replacement.
That
So
was
what we-
proposed.
Yeah, what we did is we requested, $18 million in our,
Project plan.
project plan that we submitted to the DEQ. The DEQ has subsequently turned that into an intended use plan for the EPA, which also has that request in it. We're waiting on the EPA to approve that request.
And once,
It's part
We
of our
didn't- we
WIN
haven't
grant.
allocated it yet.
once that approval or approvals, and that's kind of what everybody waiting for, one of the areas. Ms. Fields.
Okay, several things here. Number one,
Now, y'all
Council?
know it's a motion on the floor, right?
Council,
To move these to council.
I made the motion.
I wanna see if you're gonna support it and we move them, but we in committee, do your thing.
Normally, the city would have to be spending money out of the water and sewer fund for these water meters, even if we didn't have a crisis, even if we didn't have, extra wind money. This money is not out of the wind fund. Is that correct or incorrect?
No, that's correct. That's out of the water and sewer fund.
A water and sewer fund. And that is something that you normally would have to be doing. Any municipality that has a water system would have
Yes,
to do
and
that.
on a much larger, scale than what we're doing.
Okay. And then next, you just mentioned, we do not have, you said clearly, we do not have the financial, technical, and managerial capacity to replace those 11,000 right now. And as I understand it, I think that is what you said.
That's not exactly what I said. I said part of having the technical, managerial, and financial capability of running a public water supply is that you have to be able to, one, meter water and collect the revenue.
Okay, and that's part of, you just made clear that there's more need, 11,000, than we have the money to do. The point I'm making, which I know you picked up on, is that is part of the EPA, and the sanitary survey, I think, consent decree. One of the things that we have to meet.
I agree with you, and I think that's why it's so important that the EPA, agrees to allow us to use that funding to purchase those water meters. It's an integral part of the plan that we put forth to both the DEQ and the EPA on how we solve our technical, managerial, and financial capability to run this public water supply without passing on rate increases to the residents.
And that was one of the intents of the hearing. Had we moved in a timely manner, we would be talking to people from the MDEQ and the EAP publicly as the administration is talking and moving around with them privately. There's some advantages to talking and having conversation with folks about what money gonna qualify for what. Continue if you were
Yes,
not
and the
done,
next
Ms.
thing is
Fields.
on 180426 about this, the Test America Laboratories environmental monitoring. Have we always done this, or are we only doing this because we don't have the staffing to do it ourselves?
So that's actually for the wastewater. That's for the wastewater, plant. We have, multiple, obviously, environmental obligations that we have to, adhere to out there. I think you will see that I believe the numbers increased a little bit this year, because we do not know how the regulatory agencies are gonna handle the PFAS testing. We don't know what they're gonna require of us. So there is a little bit of extra funding in that request.
But is this something normally city employees do, or we
Absolutely.
always send it out to a
We've always
test
sent it
lab? Okay, thank you.
Now, y'all know we on a motion, Miss Galloway. Go
I
ahead,
just
go
was wondering,
ahead.
why in
I'm
the
letting-
resolution, it says pending the adoption of the FY 2020 and 21 budgets? What has, hopefully will.
Because we're still talking about Testing America, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's because it's more than a one-year bid. So we're gonna utilize the pricing, or the bid that we have now is a 3-year bid. That's why it goes to those other fiscal years.
So you moving money in this resolution for more than one fiscal year?
Absolutely not.
Okay, this is for this fiscal year, but it'll lose the other.
Yeah, so this would be the first year of 3 years that we're gonna utilize this pricing.
I
from Testing
understand.
America. So this year is only for this
But
year.
this resolution is for this year.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just got the tail end, Ms. Galloway. So all, should I say all in favor of moving these two resolutions to council signify by saying aye?
Aye.
All opposed? That vote would carry 8-0 to move those to council. I would love to entertain a motion on the rest or one or all of the resolutions. Mr. Griggs?
So, I make a motion we don't separate, because there's one in here that,
So you want to separate or do them all individually, what you saying?
Individually.
Individually or in a group?
Individually.
Individually? Well, give me a motion on 18042.
Is he saying it, or is somebody else saying it?
I'm hearing some words talking, so, okay, you right. Miss Fields, let that man have the flow on his own. Mr. Griggs, you got the flow. I'm gonna shield you from any other conversation at this time. You are so shielded. Don't listen to him. Talk. You got the flow.
He's bossy
there's
women.
one resolution that I would want to separate. I don't, maybe the other council people would do that. 180431.
Okay, so you want 180431 to go separate. So now, that's your point, I understand it, so now I'm gonna go to Ms. Fields. No motion is on the floor, right?
Well, I would like to separate
We
18042.
ain't got no motion on the floor. Which one you on? You on 180427? I'm interested in a
I don't know if you
motion
want a
for-
motion to deal with them all individually, or if you want a motion
I'm
to
gonna-
move with
I'm
separations.
gonna entertain any motion come my way, Mr. Griggs, and you got a request, so however it come, I'm gonna handle it.
I make a motion to move the resolutions that are left with separations of
Hold up.
180427.
Move them and then come back and separate it. So we gonna move the resolutions then, we gonna move every resolution except for which one you want. Say it again, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Which one you said?
Mr. Mays, actually, I would just, since we have X number, I would prefer to deal with them individually. I withdraw any motion.
Okay, well then you wanna move on, somebody wanna move on 180427, Ms. Worthing.
I move that, I make a motion that we move 180427 to council.
It's been moved. Is there a second, Mr. Winfrey? Okay, so 180427, a budget amendment for the transfers water fund. This is a budget amendment. What is it, Mr. Newsom, for 1.3 million?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Fields?
Okay, I'm trying to understand this. It says, changes requested to the city's water fund, which is the 591 fund, and he wants to move it to a subset of the 591 fund. Is that correct? There are 3 subsets?
And this got something to do with completing Stewart Street.
It's, you know, take some of it.
Look, let me start. I just wanna talk about the technical fund balance, piece of it, and then, you can talk about the actual rationale for doing it. So, just so you know, if you read the resolution, it says the money's coming from fund balance into this department, into, this particular account. The 540300 department ID through 801.000, which is the professional services. So that's the ways mechanically working, this money's coming from fund balance into this particular account. Just so we're clear, this money was allocated last year but was not spent. So it flowed in the fund balance, and now we're asking for a budget and then pull it back out. So I just wanted to explain the mechanics of it.
Now, that fund balance you're talking about is what? Not the 16 million, a
That's the-
carryover from last year?
Roughly, 11 for the water fund. This
For
is
the
about
water,
9
this is
million.
the water fund,
Not
that's
the
not the
general
general, okay.
Right.
Miss, you know, I'm watching that 16 million.
Well, I wasn't through, but,
But you got the floor, go ahead, Miss Fields.
okay. I just wanna make sure that that explanation helped, okay? I wanna make sure that we have, that this is the totality of the money that we need to complete these 3 projects. The Stewart Avenue project, right? The water main leak detection services, and for the Stewart Avenue water main design engineering services. Is this the totality to complete those projects?
Yes, the project on Stewart, the water main portion of it is finished. That was the bid, price. To my knowledge, they have not submitted any change orders for it. So that project is essentially done. The design has been done a long time ago for it, so that number should be solid. And leak detection, we have the quote on that, so we
So-
should be good on all of them.
So are you saying, Mr. Newsom, if Mr. Benzick said it's been completed, have they not submitted their bill for payment? Is this money so we can then pay them for the submitted invoices?
They have
Or-
not submitted invoices on that.
So that's what this money's for?
Yeah.
To actually pay when they do submit their invoices?
Yes.
Which last year, we had this set up that we could have done it, okay, except that at the end of the year, anything that's left goes into fund balance, and now you have to move it to technically, okay.
So it went,
That
it came out of the
you.
budget, went into fund balance, we're gonna pull it back out of fund balance into the budget because MDOT didn't elect to do the project last year.
Okay, in that case, I would support that.
If there's no further discussion on that resolution 180427 to move that budget amendment to council, it is, Ms. Galloway.
I just wanted to make sure that these funds had nothing to do with the, budget amendment that was done for the money that was transferred.
I'm glad you asked that question. The way you would know that, if you look 540.300, if you look at the resolution, 540.300 is the department code. So that's different, I think 540.210 is a different one that's specific for service line replacement. That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it. When you listen out.
Okay, so what was the question? I wanna know what was a very good question. What did you ask, Ms. Galloway? I didn't answer you. What was you?
Well, we did the transfer, and one of the, questions that came up is how do we know that the budget amendment that's gonna be approved is not gonna be used for something else? So I just want it done on the record to show that this is not something that we amended.
Okay, I was just kidding, Mr. Newsom. I don't understand. Tell me what you.
So basically, what she's talking about, if you remember the budget amendment, we talked about to pay Goyette for restoration. What I was pointing out, if you look at the account number that's listed
Oh,
in
the
the
budget
resolution,
amendment.
right, the middle 7 digits or the middle 7 characters specify a specific.
So she wanted to know if it had something to do with that other budget amendment. And you
Right.
said it wasn't. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor of moving this to council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? I would record that vote as 8-0 to move that to council. I'd like to entertain a motion on 180428 and anything else y'all wanna do. Group, single?
We're still on 428.
Yeah, we have 180428. It's a budget amendment for transfer of water infrastructure and distribution. Y'all see it? Okay, Ms. Fields,
Do you want us to have a motion on the floor before we discuss it?
you do what you like. You got the floor right now.
I would rather discuss this first, because I don't know if I wanna make a motion to move this
Okay.
to council, or to make a
Well, you-
motion to postpone this.
You got the floor. Discuss.
Okay, here's what I'm concerned with. This is $8 million that you wanna move, that is Department of Health and Human Services, State of Michigan, CHIP funds, if I'm understanding correctly. You wanna move it to the, from the 296 fund to where?
Put it into the 296 fund, Ms. Fields.
You wanna move it into
Into-
the
it's a grant.
296 fund.
It's a grant.
So you wanna accept this grant money?
Correct.
Okay, here's my question. We saw over the weekend, okay, a news article that AECom stated that they, because it says for service line replacement somewhere in here,
Yeah.
said that they estimate we only have about 1,000 more households that need their pipes replaced. I brought found it, some of this, your,
Presentation.
yeah, because what I wanna see is, I don't know if I'm looking at the right page, maybe you can help me. How much money we already have sitting there in the service line replacement fund currently?
It wouldn't, okay, so right now.
I know you're, just wanna accept the grant money, but it's
Right.
what your next move is that
I
concerns
believe
me.
it's gonna be more than 1,000, more lines.
So, just so we can figure this out, what I wanna do is point, and unfortunately, I don't have this for everybody and people on the camera, but I just wanna point out where this is going. So you see that phase 5 through 6 right there, that box, and there's only 9 of the total 47 that we're looking for. So what the state's responsible for is allocating a total of 47 million to go along with the 40 million to get to 87. Part of that could be CHIP. This 8 million for
I
CHIP.
know
would
your
move it-
asterisk says CHIP funds.
Right, exactly. CHIP funds could be included. So that would mean this would go from 9 to 17. So that's all we're doing, is we're accepting that, and that 9 will go to 17. Now, remember, and one thing that's very important is that only CHIP-eligible homes could have services done on them through this grant.
We gotta get that 9 up to 26.
And that's what we're working on. We're getting it, this gets it to 17, and the plan is that at the beginning of September, we'll add more to it, okay, to get it higher. So all I'm saying is what's gonna happen is that 9 goes to 17 with this 8 million. So hopefully, is that
What are you
clear?
talking about? We need to get it higher. Here's what I'm concerned about,
Yes.
okay? All this money that we've been allocated,
Yeah.
okay? It's a possibility, if we don't need as many service line replacements as we thought we did initially,
Right.
we still have this big pot of money
Now, you
that we could then use on other infrastructure, water mains.
We don't know.
cannot do that. Cannot
We
do
don't
that.
know.
That's impossible. All this money is allocated specifically for service line replacement. It's a grant. So if you don't spend the money because you didn't need it, you don't get to use it. It's specific for service line replacement activities.
That's fine, but we all have to remember, okay, the state money isn't magical pixie dust money. State money is your tax dollars too. So as much as your city tax dollars, these federal grants and the state funds, those are tax dollars.
Yes,
If we don't need to spend it,
okay.
okay, we shouldn't be spending it.
So let's be sure what we're talking about, Ms. Fields. It's not like we sign this document and the state brings an armored truck with 8 million. As Mr. Branch just mentioned, this is all reimbursed. So this puts that money on the books so we can't access it to continue service line replacement work. So it's not like we're having this 8 million that we won't spend. I don't touch a dime of that until I send Lansing the reimbursement request. You were the one who were concerned about the reimbursement requests that were in the.
I do
paper about a
understand
month
that.
ago. So I just wanna make sure we're saying, so I don't understand the point.
But
that we're
here's what
wasting
I'm
money.
concerned about, and I have a special order in government ops, and I'm glad Mr. Gilchrist is here, because I do hope he'll be here during government ops, during that special order. I wanna talk about activities that we're undertaking that I believe are not necessary, that we're using money that we don't need to be using, okay? And there might even be an opportunity to go back and say, look, if we don't need that much for service line replacement, would you allow us to use that amount for other infrastructure improvements? So I'm just concerned that we need to get the bottom of how many service line replacements we actually need, okay? And I'm hoping in the investigative hearings to get the answers to part of that.
Okay.
So,
My-
on this, if you're just saying that this is, excuse me, and apparently didn't
Yeah, I don't
read it
think we-
correctly.
I don't think
If
we-
this is just to accept the money to put it into a 296 account, which now you explained, you're no longer putting grant money into the 591 the way
Right, we're
Mr.
cleaning all
Sabuda
that up.
did.
Right, we're
Point of
cleaning all that up.
information.
What's your point, Mr. Green?
Uh-huh.
I thought that if we had excess funds in the patient supply lines, those excess funds that we didn't use would go back to the state.
That's what we're saying.
That's what he just said.
We never draw it in the first place. All this is a grant agreement that says we have up to 8 million additional dollars to do some replacement at CHIP eligible homes. We wouldn't even get the money if we didn't do the work.
Ms. Galloway, did you have something?
Okay.
What, I know it, that's my technique. Let me, you
No.
you messing up my strategy. Ms. Galloway, did you have something? Ms. Fields, were you done?
I just wanted to confirm with Mr. Newsom one other thing on this. If we accept this in a 296 fund,
Yes.
okay, you have to bring us a budget amendment in order to use it for any of the activities, is that correct?
That's what this is. That's what we're saying. So what would happen is we'd add 8 million of capacity to accept this.
To the
to
296.
fund, and then we draw against this, we do the work, CHIP eligible homes, only about 25% estimated. And then what would happen is those reimbursement requests that we talked about, we send reimbursement requests that would be specific for CHIP homes. Now, yes. go
But
ahead.
would you have to bring us
That would be this.
a
that would be
budget
it.
amendment?
No, for what? Because I've already added that to the budget for the 296 fund. That's what this is. Now, what you would see going forward, as we talked about before, you see the check register, so you know what hit the 296 fund, and that's what we talked about before. We need to figure out exactly what you all want to see in that.
So what you're saying then is just like you now have all these subsets, okay, in the 591, you're
Yeah.
creating all these subsets in a 296,
When
right,
you
with
say
line
subset-
items.
When you say subset, I guess what, if you're I guess what you're asking for is you wanna
Here.
know.
On
Right.
out, wages and salaries, overtime,
Mm.
fringes, pension,
Yeah.
blah, 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 service line, restoration,
So,
hydrovacing.
If you read the resolution, it's actually gonna be one specific line number, right? So if you wanna see what this 8 million is being used for, you would see it against this account number, the 296-540.210-801-013. So what you would do when you get your check register, you see everything that hit that, I just need to make sure that you have the account.
What
number
does that
there.
account for? Can you
It's
give us the
professional
narrative?
Okay, so let's go through each one.
Professional
Two-
services.
So 296,
We're
that's
not
the
gonna
grant
go
fund.
through each one right now. I
This'll
just
be
wanna
right-
No,
get
I
the-
just wanna know
This'll be. this
what
is
they
all-
intend to
Speeding
use this
y'all
money
up, I'm
for.
gonna end up letting you do it. I'm a nice chair, but this is
Mhm.
my way of sounding an alarm to y'all.
I
Come on,
understand.
speed this up.
I'm gonna make it real
And
quick.
then Ms. Galloway.
So again, 296, the 296 funds, special revenue grants, et cetera. 540.210, like I
Mr.
just
Winfrey.
reminded Ms. Galloway, that's specific for
Sure,
service
it
line
is.
replacements, the department code specific for service line replacement.
You got time.
And then after that, 801.113,
What time
which is professional services. Because we're outsourcing all that service line replacement work.
Mr. Winfrey.
What
In
would
this
professional
phase.
services, I understand lead line replacement, a contractor goes out and replaces.
Right.
And I understand it could be used for whatever.
Right.
What are you using professional services money for?
Contractors, outsourcers.
Is that separate from or the same as lead service line replacements like you have in the 591
I
fund?
guess I'm confused by your question because what we're saying is that if you think about the way that the budget's set up, the 801 account is specific for some professional services across the board. So anytime you see though, that is the last 7 digits, 801.0 what, 0XX, that's gonna be for professional services. So when you combine that with 540.210, which is specific for service line replacement, what we're saying is professional services within the department ID or department code for service line replacement. That's what we're saying.
Okay, what I'm concerned about is that you will use this money to pay for traditional excavation, which I disagree with. I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Winfrey now has the floor. I would like to make a motion that we postpone this, because I need to understand this better. Postpone this to the next finance committee meeting.
If I may respond, just,
There's a motion on the floor to postpone this until the next finance committee meeting. Councilman,
I second that.
you second the motion? Is there any discussion? Okay. Then we'll get you,
Well, no, not on the postponement. Yeah, I do have some questions about it, but it's probably not proper to do it during the postponement discussion, right?
It relates, yeah.
Okay, so I just have a couple of questions for you. One, my question is, why is it that this says the date range is October first, 2017 to
Great question.
September
That's a
30th?
fantastic question. It
2017?
aligns with the state's, fiscal year. So the goal is to get this done as soon as possible. For all the work, now some of the work that could go against the CHIP grant has already been done. We haven't done the reimbursement request yet. We just got direction from the state what's CHIP eligible. It's not. So the game plan is put this on the books for all homes that are CHIP eligible where we've done work. Submit that as its own special request, and that would hit this fiscal year in terms of the state. That corresponds with the state's fiscal year. So we have till, the end of their fiscal year plus about 30, 60 days, depending on who you talk to get all the expenses in. So we want to get this done, get those reimbursement requests done, and you talk about saving money for the state, for the state citizens of the state. This is federal money, so this is a different pot of money. So this puts less pressure on the state taxpayers of Michigan because this is federal Department of Health and Human Services money that's available to us. So, hopefully that answers your question in terms of the timing.
It's part of it, but
Okay.
the other part that I'm concerned is, it looks like this was requested under Sylvester Jones when he was the administrator.
Mhm.
This looks like it was approved and/or the Michigan Department, whatever, was signed off on November 1st, 2017.
Yes.
So my concern is, this is not money that just came up.
No, there are a series of signatures, I can walk you through the signatures that took place well after the fact. Chalk it up to to the lack of a handoff between one department head to the other, or one administrator to the other. But this money has been there. Now that we're getting closer to the end of the fiscal year, now it's time for us to go through. But that's not the last signature that was needed on their side. So I want to make sure that's clear.
But that's what you provided to us, and so I'm gonna
I
just
get
tell
it.
you this. I'm concerned that we've known about $8 million, and it's just coming because we're again trying to hit the deadlines. I don't have a problem with accepting money,
Okay.
right?
All right.
But my other question to you.
I do have to say this, we're a month ahead, before the fiscal year ends, and we're 2 to 3 months before those reimbursement requests will be due, so this.
But let's just say worst case scenario, I guess it would help to know when, and I know I don't mean to frustrate you at all, Mr. Newsom, you know that I work very well with you. But
work
in
very well.
looking at the dates on this, this should not be coming before this council a month or so, and that sounds great. We're still trying to get it in, we got a new governor that's coming in, I get all of that. But I want you to please understand that what I'm saying is a valid concern.
I'm not disagreeing.
Okay, so I just want to make sure. But my biggest question becomes a part of the expectations of this grant.
Okay.
And, please I'm sorry, I lost my page. Activity, objective. The city will support the replacement of service lines for eligible homes in the 4th phase of service line removal. Okay? That's what the objective of this grant is, right? So, but then it also says, the city will subcontract with general contractors or contractor or the like that have at least 5 years' worth of experience in underground-related construction in order to perform are we meeting those deadlines? I mean, those qualifications based on what this grant is saying?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so I don't know, and so I'm gonna support a postponement because I don't know that. And I just wanna make sure that if we do, and you guys please don't huff and puff, when the smoke clears, I'm only one of 9 votes, and it's unfair for the administration and/or the executive branch to side at one of the legislators deciding that they want more information. And I just wanna say that for the record, but I'm comfortable. I'm only one of 9. Thank you, sir. I've asked all the questions I need to.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Winfrey. I'm not gonna probably, give my opinion on which way I'm gonna vote until after I hear from Mr. Green.
If we postpone this, it'll be September 5. Does that affect the project?
So just so you know, we have probably till November 30th, sorry, I've switched sides. We have probably till November 30th to get all the reimbursement requests in. And so with that being said, I mean, with a 2-week, I just don't understand why a 2-week postponement is necessary, but I'm not saying it's the end of the world. I'm gonna be honest, I'm saying it's not the end of the world in terms of time. I don't know what additional information you all would get in 2 weeks that's going to cause you to be more comfortable. Mr. Branch has already attested to the fact that we have 5 years worth of experience. I know you have separate questions and concerns, but this is more an access to money to perform work as opposed to this question about whether or not we're
Let us-
being expeditious with money.
Let us continue
So
to
with that being
discuss it.
said, I'm not sure what we can provide you over the next 2 weeks that's gonna allay your concerns. But with that being said, I'm not gonna say that the 2-week delay is going to end the world.
I already know the 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th council person. I'm gonna nickname you the 14th. And so since you was in on this discussion, Mr. Winfrey, we gonna see how these votes shape up.
Then let's do this. Are you sure that you know what questions she needs and what questions she needs? Because we can be here 2 weeks later, you still don't know, and then we're gonna do it 2 weeks again. So is there a
Let me-
possibility of being specific on what you need?
You know,
And there be a meeting of the minds on.
you know what I'm gonna do?
Yep.
I'm gonna propose that we move it, and worst case scenario, the special affairs, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna vote to postpone it 2 weeks. I know what receiving grant money is, I know what the service line replacement is, and so I'm gonna try to appeal to Ms. Galloway, on a substitute motion to special affairs, and then touch up any loose questions there. I'm not gonna really be feeling good about this particular 8 million because it's leading us up to that 26 million on the original contract that we approved for all the service line people. Ms. Fields?
I'd like to say that I don't even know what questions I have at the moment, but we're talking about $8 million. And this city has a history of paying back millions and millions and millions of grant dollars because we didn't use it correctly, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want at least 2 weeks to investigate the criteria for the actual grants, to understand this better, to ask my questions. I have no problem calling Mr. Newsom and asking him specific questions if he'll take those calls. But, you know, I am known for looking at the details of things, and I am not comfortable voting on $8 million that I don't understand everything about this grant and the ramifications. And I don't think I'll have time to have my questions answered by special affairs.
Okay.
And
I
Mr.
would-
Newsom already said there's no problem with,
I would like
a
to
2-week
entertain
delay.
a motion. If the motion don't come, that's fine, but I'll be voting no to postpone it. You know I'm sensitive to people who need questions answered. Somebody gotta know what the questions is. What is the questions? That's what Mr. Winfrey asked, that's what I'm asking. What is the questions? Do anybody know a question?
you don't know what you don't know until you do the research.
Give me one question. Now, what research is it that you need?
What's the criteria for this grant and the spinning of this? What is the
Okay.
Code of Federal Regulations
Okay, well,
that
let me
governs
do it
this
this way.
grant?
Mr. Winfrey, you gonna affect this vote. We will see you, we'll talk about it, we'll tell you what the outcome was.
Let me know what the outcome.
I'll tell you what the outcome was. Now, check this out. Y'all do realize with 4 votes, the motion fails. And so, I'm looking, I don't know if this motion to postpone is gonna pass. So I'm telling you, if it fails, then we'll see what we do from there.
They won't have enough votes.
Anybody,
To move it either.
anybody wanna discuss it any further? Ms. Galloway?
Point of information,
No, you got the flow.
oh, so, Councilman Mays, I know that if it fails
Fails.
in passing, there would have to be a reconsideration
Well,
as
if-
well because of I mean, I'm just saying.
If it
based
fails
on-
for postpone, we could
Postpone it
entertain
and
another
or move
motion.
to- Right,
Yeah.
but if you still find yourself in that situation.
That's correct.
I just, I don't.
Let's look at one motion at a time.
That sounds good.
Y'all ready to vote on the motion to postpone? Okay, all in favor of postponing to the next finance committee meeting, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. The motion, any abstentions, ain't nobody left. So the motion fails 4-3 to postpone. Okay, so now that it hasn't been postponed to finance committee meeting, I would entertain a motion to move it to special affairs, because if you ain't got your questions answered by special affairs, you could move to postpone further. So I would request, somebody make a motion to special affairs and we work from there if we understand what's happening. Ms. Galloway,
Councilman Mays, I make a motion that we postpone to special events.
is there support? Ms. Word?
I second that.
It's been moved and properly supported. Everybody see the politics of this motion? Any discussion? Anybody see the mechanics? Okay, look, all in favor of postponing the special affairs, raise your hand. All opposed? The vote, well, let's do it again. All,
careful,
well,
Miss, you might
this is
vote
what
with
we
me.
got. This
That's
is what we got.
dangerous.
Any abstentions? Remember, before we call the vote, according to our rules, you can change your vote before the vote is called. So I want to clarify this vote before the numbers is called. All in favor of postponing the special affairs, raise your hand.
Maybe.
All opposed, raise your hand. Okay, the vote is 5-2. The motion passes to postpone the special affairs. I would recommend any questions, anything, Mr. Branch, if anybody, Ms. Galloway and Ms. Fields has some questions. We'll see if it moves from special affairs forward or backwards.
Mr. Chair.
Madam Fields,
I would move 180429 and 180430 to council.
there's been a motion made, Ms. Galloway.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion made and properly second to move 180429. This is a budget amendment, Police Department grants, and 180430, a settlement agreement, City of Flint versus C3 Incorporated, Remington Food and Spirits. The council, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Those two resolutions have been moved to council. I'd entertain another motion. Ms. Galloway?
I actually do not want to make a motion because I am not sure that I want to make a motion.
Okay, well, we on the agenda, item
So I have a question,
180431. The
yes.
floor is yours.
Okay, Mr. Newsom, I have a question. I want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding what this is. There were just a couple of things that jumped out at me, and I want you to help me with my understanding. In here it said that, in the issuance of pursuant to, I'm sorry, I have, pursuant to the issuing of bonds, yes, here it is. Notice of intent to issue bonds must be published at least 45 days before the issuance of bonds in order to comply with Act 94.
That's correct.
And then the loan related to the issuance of such bond that provides assistance to. And so I just wanna know, are we getting into debt with this?
Mr. Newsom, would you like to join us? You sure he is getting a lot of action.
Oh, I'm sorry, resolution 18043.
You're welcome to join us if you'd like.
I'll just stand and take it, it's fine. These are forgivable loans, and so it's not like, I mean, technically it has, because it's structured as forgivable loans, we have to go through a process. That's fine, thank you. But because they're forgivable loans, you notice that throughout the resolution that it's forgivable, it will behave as, I hate to say a grant, but a grant. It will behave that way. You won't see it, we won't Right, exactly, thank you. So it's
I
the
didn't hear
funding,
what the
the
president
funding,
said,
let me
right.
explain it, yeah, let me,
Well, just real quick, I mean, he's doing a good job, but they're using the WIN funds, they're using the DWRF, the Drinking Water Revolving Fund, as the funding mechanism, how they get us the money. So one of the steps in that funding mechanism is you have to have these bonds in order to receive the funding. It's really more of just a box to check than it is anything else.
right.
It's just part of the process.
And that's the reason you have to go through the 45
Ms.
days, 'cause
Wheeler.
that's part of the process to issue a bond.
And to add on to that, Rob and you were saying, this is the same process that you used last year to receive the $40 million. So we're using the same mechanism to receive the funds, 100% forgivable, zero interest.
Before we go to Ms. Fields, Ms. Galloway, you
Yeah,
still got the floor.
So forgivable means, let me just make sure that I get this. So I'm doing a process as if I'm doing a loan and or the issuance of bond, going through all the process that you would have to go to obtain a loan.
Right.
But this is not a loan. The state statute requires that you do all of those things necessary, even though they're going to forgive it.
Yes,
Does that mean that there is no possibility for this municipality that those loans, that loan is not going to be forgiven?
that is correct. And that's the reason the resolution states that.
And so where do we have something from the state that shows, like what statute, does that make sense? I know what it says in our resolution, but where does it say on the state's behalf that when the new government gets in, that nobody don't get all amnesia on us?
It's the same as last year.
Right.
Exactly the same.
I get that, Angela, but I'm asking specifically to today. Act 94? Thank you.
And
I'm gonna say
don't
that
quote me
right.
on this, but I also think the WIN Act itself also specifically says that these loans are forgivable, zero interest. Don't quote me on that, I do wanna read that before I say, but I'm pretty sure that the WIN Act, which is also referenced in the resolution, also deems that these are gonna be forgivable loans.
What about when it says the city desires to issue bonds as authorized, write the sentence right after 132,000, does that apply to
Wait a
that
minute.
only? The 132 million?
So we submitted
yeah,
hundred and thirty,
yes, into the
yeah,
list.
so we submitted $132 million worth of projects. And as you recall, when we submitted the project plan, we submitted $132 million worth of projects, but we expect to get 80 million back. So I don't know if you recall that conversation from before. So that you will see some reference to that 132 million, and the projects are listed in the actual, in the resolution itself.
So we would still be trying to acquire, the 80,000 and.
80 million.
80 million,
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's a lot of, I really do know that, okay, but, so,
Understood.
so we're still looking for dollars to make up that difference, is that, or, no, I'm sorry, we've already, received that other portion.
When you say that-
adds up to the 132?
So, no, okay, so let's go back through that little design.
sorry.
Can I
Rob,
borrow,
you
if I
wanna
may
go
borrow
down
this?
there and sit and
While
talk?
he's
I think,
running
yeah,
over
it's
here.
in there, right?
So if you remember, Ms. Wheeler was talking about this 40 million
Yes,
here, okay?
yes.
So we're
Go
talking
ahead,
about the
Joe.
80 million,
Yeah.
which has already been, I'm gonna say appropriated at the federal level through the
Right.
WIN Act.
I was just trying to remember where
Right.
that 132, it seems
So
like
the
they
one-
talked about that too.
So the 80 that's left over,
Yeah,
there's actually $132 million worth of projects to
Yes.
do, but we only got $80 million of
so
funding.
we would need more money to do all
Exactly.
our projects. I
That
just
is
wanted to make
correct.
sure, yeah, okay,
And,
thank
and
you.
remember, we did that in the event that they don't approve some of them. We'll have other projects to go to. I also want to correct Mr. Newsom, because I think he's overlooking. We have about 78,500,000 because of the subtraction for the
The Arcadis study.
Arcadis and the corrosion study, the distribution optimization and the corrosion study.
Mr. Bendick, I would really like for you to say through the chair to Ms. Galloway.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I apologize. No disrespect intended.
Go ahead, Ms. Fields.
I will have
Oh,
to
yeah.
say that when I first got my agenda and I read this, my eyes bugged out because I thought some crazy person was suggesting that we take out bonds with the debt service,
That would be
which
crazy.
which would actually force us to raise our water rates.
That would be crazy.
So I had a lot of questions.
Mhm.
My questions have changed because now I kind of come to understand that as bizarre as it seems, this is some mechanism, okay, that the federal government has set up, that in order for us to get our wind funding, okay, we have to actually issue these bonds,
Right.
and then this thing will be forgiven, there will be no interest rate on the bonds or whatever.
Got it.
All right, my problem is partly the same as Ms. Galloway is, where is it in writing that this is forgivable?
Again, I'm pretty sure that it's in the WIN Act, the actual WIN Act. This is all issued through, remember that the state is a fiduciary. This is all channeled through the DORF program, but this is federal money, right? The 120 million less the 40. 120 million less the 40, which leaves us 80, is all federal money. So the federal government dictates how this is gonna be done. And I wanna look this up, and I'll go look at this up right now. I don't wanna say anything that's incorrect, but I'm very
I
sure
get
that
that
the WIN
now,
Act
but it looked pretty,
says forgivable.
pretty bizarre, and a little heads up that this thing was coming might have been good, because,
Actually, we did say that we will be coming to you for the 80 million of funding when we put together the project plan. I don't know if you were present, but we did talk about that.
well, maybe I wasn't here during that time.
We gotta.
But I would like to make a motion, since for an 80 million bond, and we could have a new governor and what, I wanna be real sure, okay, that this is forgivable before I approve some mechanism for $80 million that could conceivably put us more in debt with, so I wanna read it for myself, okay? So I'm going to look at the Michigan Act 90,
94.
Act, what is it,
Act 94.
Wheeler?
Or there's others too, but that's one of the acts.
Well, then I'll make a request, okay, but if you want this anytime soon from me, Ms. Wheeler, if you could find the pertinent acts, and/or I don't know if this is in the Code of Federal Regulations on the WIN Act, I don't know what the CFR is pertinent, but I wanna see that this is forgivable, so I would like to make that motion that we postpone this at a minimum for 2 weeks.
Hold up. There's been a motion made to postpone this for 2 weeks, and Mr. Griggs looked like you wanted to do what? Second it? Been a motion made and properly second. I see activity all over the room. I see Ms. Wheeler, Mr. Woodson seem to have information. I see Ms. Worthing moving. I see Ms. Galloway, and I'm gonna see what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stick first with some counsel, but I'm gonna start with who was first, Worthing or Galloway. But Miss Angela Wheeler, I'm finna get you right in there. And if this man knows something, he might too. Miss Galloway, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Newsom, has the 40 million been, when is the timeline for the forgiveness of these funds?
So for the 40 million, I think 20 million was forgiven right when I took over as CFO.
Okay.
We haven't spent the other 20 million yet. So let me get back to you on that timing, but I think 20 of the 40 has already been forgiven.
20 was forgiven.
Right.
I recall that.
So
It
can
was
we
last
use?
November. No, remember the
We're
first
gonna use
40
the one with
per the settlement,
Right.
service line
Oh, yeah,
replacement
yeah,
only.
yeah, yeah. And so the time, so if I'm hearing you correctly, first we must use it,
Mhm.
and then once we use it, is there a timeline in the forgiveness
So let me be very clear. You know, last I was honest with Mr. Griggs a minute ago, all right? So this one is a little bit more time sensitive. You know, we're in a critical path. So all those projects we talked about, Kersley Street, there are many others that Mr. Benson knows much better than me by heart. But we're waiting to get that done. What if the water meters if the water meters are approved, we're ready to go on that. We're ready to go. But we already have a 45-day waiting period because these are structured as bonds. So a 2-week delay adds to that. And so I think I get that there's concern. And again, we live this every day, and you all aren't exposed to it as we are. So I get that, but I would strongly suggest that council not wait 2 weeks because we already have 45 days on top of that before the money is available, before we can proceed with work. And there are, I'll kick it to Mr. Benzick if you
No,
allow,
I'm gonna
Mr. Chair.
kick it
No,
to
no,
Ms.
no, no.
Worthing.
But I wanna
know
make
you're
sure.
not done. I'm saying he ain't gonna kick it. I'm gonna kick it to Ms. Worthing after you
I don't
finish.
need you to appeal to me about
Yeah.
not postponing.
Mhm.
I'm just asking, what is the time frame
I'm
of
sorry.
the forgiveness?
I don't know the exact time
Okay.
frame off the top of my head, but I
Okay.
can get that to you.
Okay.
I will list that as one of two questions.
Ms. Wheeler, hang on one
In addition to
second.
yours.
It's a method to my madness. Ms. Worthing,
I would like to make a motion to postpone to special affairs, so substitute motion.
a substitute motion, Ms. Galloway, is always in order. So
Well,
it's
it
been a
is, it is.
substitute motion been made to postpone to special affairs. The question is there a second?
Act 94 with that.
Ms. Worthing has made a substitute motion to postpone the special affairs. The question on the floor, is there a second for her motion? I would second, if nobody else did. I would second her motion. Is there a discussion on the second motion, on the motion to postpone the special affairs? Ms. Fields, but Ms. Fields, before you go, Ms. Wheeler, I said I would recognize you. Do me one more indulgence, because I'm counsel sensitive. Ms. Fields, go ahead.
I would say that I don't think that's a good substitute motion, because number one, either you're going to do the research yourself to look up these various acts that apply and the Code of Federal Regulations that provide the guidance on what is or isn't eligible and how these grant funds work, or you're gonna rely on a referral, which they wouldn't even have time to get that information to us by Monday. So, I think it's better to postpone it for 2 weeks and try to move it to special affairs, because there simply isn't enough time to get information, and we're talking about an $80 million bond, so I think we better be real sure this is a forgivable mechanism.
To the city attorney, the great city attorney of the city of Flint, Angela Wheeler, Mr. Griggs, I'm gonna ask you to bear with me. I don't know if Miss Worthing was through yet.
After her.
Okay, so Mr. Griggs, it's gonna be Miss Wheeler, Miss Worthing back, and then Mr. Griggs. Miss Wheeler.
Okay, so let me say, if you read the actual resolution authorizing the acceptance of the funds, it tells you everything that you need to know by reading it. Let's talk about the act and things like that. I have no problem with trying to find you a specific line that says those things, but if you read this 22-page document, it has everything in there. We negotiated these same or similar terms, pretty much exact terms last year with the state. That's why we were able to do a little bit more expediting once we got the projects approved. So as we said, because like I said, there's one step, but then there are other steps. Like I said, you did the one step, which was to accept the project plan, but behind the scenes, then there is the part where you have to accept the funds. And so, like I said, we did all those things working with the state, and this is the language that we have received from the state. So it doesn't take long to read, it's like 22 pages. I'm not saying it's the most exciting read, but it provides you what you need. It also has a specific issuance from the provisions of Public Act, Michigan, Act 94, Public Act, Michigan 1933, in there. Now, the part about the 45 days, that is important because we cannot publish this without the permission of the council. So we very much need this so that we can go ahead and get the funds to the city and for the projects. And I believe there's one project, and Rod might be able to speak to that first project that's kind of waiting in the wings that we want to get done first, because I believe when the money comes in, it's going to be kind of in like separate tranches, because there's approvals, they have to get orders of approval from the state of Michigan. So it's not just like, we're gonna just, like I said, the Brinks truck's not backing up to the city to get the money. You know, we have to do this in process. So, it's a 45-day, publication, before
before the city can close on the bond financing. And as you know, we're butting up against a election in November. So, like I said, this is important to get these things through right now, as much as possible. And like I said, there's still a process, but like I said, we got this to you as soon as we were able to get it to you. We wanted to get it to you in a committee meeting and not, get it in the proper format and not wait until the special affairs or council and do it that way. We wanted to do it in advance.
And so it looked like you've done that, and so, some get excited when motions is made, and I don't get excited or let down until the motion is voted. Look like I'm gonna support Ms. Worthing's motion, I literally did, but Ms. Fields looked like she got something to say, and I'm gonna hear it before I say what I have to say, but I'm telling you, I sure have been not saying a word on these discussions on these motions. Ms. Fields, y'all should be proud of the way this is operating.
I would like to say that I think Ms. Wheeler and Mr. Newsom maybe have been having lunch with Suzanne Wilcox, because
They getting conservative, what you say?
I think they're having lunch with Ms. Wilcox, because the song we hear from Ms. Wilcox always is, you must approve this immediately because there's a deadline and we don't have time to postpone for you to think about it or to do the research or whatever. I mean, that's what we hear all the time. If there was this key 45-day and whatever, and you'd been telling us, you said for a long time, we have to, why wasn't this done 2-3 months ago? Why is it brought to us now and, oh, you must do it right away? I don't like doing business that way, and I don't like that kind of pressure. Either get stuff complex, large money items to us in a timely fashion, which means give us enough time to read it thoroughly, to do our research. I mean, we only even got these agendas, what,
That's
Monday
not
or
us.
Tuesday?
We submitted this a week in advance, Ms.
Okay, let
Fields.
me do this.
Well, you know what the system is, and when we get our agendas, it's not sufficient time. And I understand you've been working on this, so to you now, it's timely. It's not timely to council. This is big money stuff, and I think we have a fiduciary duty to understand it before we vote on it. And I would certainly appreciate if somebody withdrew their motion to move it to special
Let
affairs.
me say this, I do want Ms. Worthing to withdraw her motion. You know why? Even though I'm gonna support it, because we need to see the look. I think the motion before yours was the motion to postpone it for 2 weeks. We need to see what that looked like. That's gonna help us win the motion to postpone to special affairs. See, if we jeopardize the motion to postpone to special affairs, we can't go forward. We can only go backwards. So it'll be a good strategy for us to withdraw the motion to postpone to special affairs, see what that motion to postpone 2 weeks look like. And if it looked like the other one, then come back with the motion for special affairs. Now, if you think we can pull it off, I'm counting. You better look. Can you read Mr. Griggs' eyes? I can't read Monica Galloway's eyes. So just think about what I'm saying. I've said it, but guess who got the floor? You do.
Before I do that,
If you do.
I do agree that, I mean, some of these things, I read this, and I don't always understand what's going on until you explain it, because it's a
Wait
lot
until
of
I'm-
legalese.
Let's wait till I'm done.
None of it makes sense, like, $80 million, we see bond, that's gonna freak, I mean, and it truly is, like, someone's insane, they're trying to put us in debt. I mean, Monica asked that question. So, I don't think anyone's trying to be difficult or, untrustful or distrustful.
Understand.
It's just that it is our duty, to just make sure that the city stays, afloat and we do our job. And, I would appreciate maybe like if you know it and it's not officially on the agenda.
Mhm.
I mean, why can't we get an email saying this is what, I'm gonna explain it to you ahead of time, this is what this means? I don't know, it's just a suggestion, I don't know how, if that's the legality of it or whatever, but, it would help me, and I'm sure others, process the information before even coming here.
Right.
I would be okay with special affairs if I had exactly where it was. Okay, well, no, not the resolution, in the act. And not saying I don't believe you, but I am also like Ms. Fields. I wanna see for myself before I sign anything, you know, I've said this before, if you've been through any contract or any legal thing, you see it for yourself before you sign it. And that's really what we do on council, is we sign something, and it should be something that we personally know every detail about, or that's on us. And so, I'm gonna withdraw my motion to, postpone it to special affairs.
So that mean it would be a motion on the floor to postpone it for 2 weeks. And so that would be the relevant discussion right now. I'm not gonna support the motion to postpone it for 2 weeks. I will support a motion to postpone it to special affairs. But I wanna see what this thing gonna look like. Ms. Galloway, seemed like you want to say something.
I just wanna say to you, Ms. Worthing, it is totally understandable to wanna understand. I think that, we will get to a day where, asking these questions don't make us feel as though we're imposing. And so, I just am reading, and I'm willing to do my reading too. But I will say this. I think that some of this wouldn't happen as we begin to better bridge the gap on information. And with all due respect, the fact that we're behind on reimbursements, I'm not saying that has anything to do with this, but some of that, right? But also, Mr. Newsom, in here it said eligible, so it is expected. So I'm reading already. But the question becomes, if we approve this
Yes.
and the EPA looks at our plan and does another, and it's funny that at first it seemed like the water meters were going to be included in the WIN money when the grand deal was being approved. And then later on, it seemed like that it wasn't approvable, and they were trying to find a way that it correlated to be approvable. And now, all of a sudden, I'm asking that question, and it's like I've made something up. I'm just saying before you got here, right? So the question becomes, if we take on this debt, or not, I know it's not a debt, but it's technically a debt that's going to be forgiven, right? But should we take it on, we will know from the EPA everything that is approvable, right? So we won't find ourselves in an unforgivable situation. Is that fair to say?
You do, I mean, we submitted the project plan for approval before we got the funding, so the
I
project.
thought it hadn't been approved.
What I'm saying is this, the project plan is up for review.
Yes,
So
yes.
before we spend a dime on this,
That's
we
all
would-
that's all I wanted to have
Okay.
on the record. Is it safe to say
yes,
that before we do anything that is not approvable and or forgivable,
right,
we'll already know. So even though we have $132 million worth of projects, and they come back and say, hey, only 60 million of that is approvable through WIN, even though we've applied for bonds that add up to 80 million,
We've
we're
used
only
60.
gonna use 60 million.
we can't,
Is that a safe
the way the
assessment?
resolution is written,
Oh, oh.
So what
Mr.
would,
Benzick,
Mr. Chair, if I can, please?
yes, you may.
So if, in the event that they don't approve, any of the projects, what will happen is the money will fall into the main replacement. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of water main replacement that needs to be done. So we certainly can exhaust any money that they might not, or absorb any money that they might not approve as in the other projects.
but the water
So are
main
you
replacement
saying-
is part of the plan.
It is part of the plan.
Right,
So,
so make sure that's clear, please.
well, I think
I
she's.
think Mr. Benzick just, I don't know if you did more help than harm to me. Because based on what you said, if they don't approve them, we're gonna have to do these anyway. Is that what you're saying? What are you standing up to
So-
say based on
So
what
if
I
I,
thought you had answered for me?
if I understood you correctly, you said if they only approve $60 million in projects,
then we're only gonna use $60 million in funding.
Of this bond debt.
No, I mean, we're gonna use the full 78.5, is roughly $80
So,
million.
Mr. Benzick, based on what you're saying, if we approve this, and the wind funding only qualifies us for 60 million,
The wind funding's not gonna qualify for us for only $60 million. in
right, but
projects.
I just said worst case scenario, Mr. Benzick. And
And-
so
and I-
Mr.
and my
Mr. Newsom had responded, based on what you said, it confused me, because, so you're saying that they're gonna approve us for the $80 million worth of
I
project?
believe that.
Yes, but they might not be, all of the projects that we included might not be approved. But we are gonna spend $80 million, whether it be for water meters, Cedar Street, door pumping
Right, but
station,
what that
backup
says,
line.
Mr. Benzick, is if we take on this $80 million debt, I realize that we have a lot of projects that have to be done. But right now, we are talking about the most fiscally responsible decisions that qualify under WIN. So I'm gonna just make sure I'm gonna see if I understand the analogy that you're using, hypothetical numbers, in an effort to understand what you're saying. So let's just say we take out this $80 million bond debt that is forgivable under the WIN program. And then they don't approve all of the projects. Let's just say they approve 70 million. But there are still other projects available. Mr.
I'm
Benzick,
listening.
okay, maybe you don't understand what you said to me, but based on what you said to me, that's what it sounds like. You're saying, even if they don't qualify us for everything that we need, we're going to use this. Which says to me that whether they give us all the money or not, we're going to use that. And whatever they don't give us is going to add up to be a debt for this community.
I look at it,
So,
let me
okay,
say,
Mr. Newsom, you're the
let me
finance guy,
say
you
this,
can
Ms.
tell me,
Galloway.
maybe I'm confused.
Ms.
but
Galloway.
that's
We
what it
won't-
sounds
we
like.
cannot
Mr.
spend-
Newsom,
Go ahead.
let me say this, and then I'll be quiet again.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah,
Now,
I'm
listen to me,
I
Ms.
thought I was
Galloway.
good. He was
Now,
good.
listen, you done did good. Listen to this. If you know that water main stuff qualifies and stuff that qualified, even if you did 132 million and 30-something million didn't qualify, I think what I'm hearing, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, it's gonna be $80 million worth qualified.
Thank you.
Cause we know some clear-cut areas. What we don't know is some shaky areas. We see 80 million in clear-cut areas, but we don't know the shaky areas yet. So
Right,
that's
but
why I
Mr.
think,
Mays, just for the record, that is what Mr. Newsom answered. And so when Mr. Benzick got up, for me, I'm not speaking for any of my colleagues, somebody that is visual and that understands just a little bit about numbers, Mr. Newsom explained it very well, but when Rob, and I don't know if it was meant to be that way, but it sounded as though whether they give us what we need or not, we're going to use this, which led to me to appear that we could find ourselves with a debt. But I understand that you guys are too saying the same thing, it's just explained a different way.
I see where I missed it though now.
Okay.
So regardless of what projects we build, whether it's water meters, Dort, Cedar Street, backup line, chemical feed building, water quality monitoring panels and water mains. So if some of those don't get approved, they're still gonna approve us for 80 million total. We just will build more water mains is what will happen. That's what I meant to say,
Okay.
and I don't think I conveyed it very.
them
Thank
the
you so
clear-cut
much.
areas of approval. Now, this is why I want y'all to abolish that 5-minute rule, because it's too technical. Ms. Fields?
I was waiting
Correct
for you
me.
to rule me out of
Oh,
order.
was you next?
I wanted you
Sorry.
to rule me out of order.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm trying to abolish the 5-minute rule. Mr. Griggs, go ahead.
Okay. If this is so critical, we certainly should have gotten it at least a week or two ago. You said you had it done a week ago, but it's dated today. But anyhow,
Point of
council,
information,
yes,
Councilman Griggs, do you realize that generally resolutions are dated the date that they come before?
there's some that aren't.
Actually, you received it on Friday.
We did.
Oh, I see, okay. And, Councilwomen, Fields and Galloway had receipt that was given in writing. And the other question that Councilwoman Galloway was the time, when is the timing to complete this? And that wasn't answered either.
So if I may, I would argue, Councilman Griggs, I think those are, I completely agree, those are very good questions. I don't think it would, I think all the concern boils down to those two key questions, and I think those questions could be answered either right now on the fly or at least by special affairs. I don't think it's gonna take us 2 weeks to get
Why
those
don't we do
questions
it on the
answered.
fly then? If it's that critical.
Not that
Um,
critical.
Ms. Fields had something, and then I'm gonna call for the vote, because I already can see what the number's gonna be. We gonna probably have to vote again. Y'all already know what the numbers look like, I think, so let's get this off the dime. Ms. Fields, go ahead.
Number one, I'm gonna suggest the administration have T-shirts made. It's critical you vote on this immediately. And you all wear this to the meetings, whatever the deal is. But I would like to point out, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Galloway, but I think in her mind, part of what she was trying to ask is, we knew that there were invoices submitted by AECom that were disallowed by the state. They weren't going to pay those invoices. So what happened? We had to pay them out of the 591 water fund. Now, I've heard you, I don't know where you are with resubmitting, or it wasn't explained correctly or whatever, but I think what Ms. Galloway is kind of putting together in her mind is, if we agree to this bond, okay, 80 million, and then somewhere the state disallows some expenditure from something you're doing, maybe it is an eligible project that they've approved, okay, but maybe, it wasn't done correctly, or somebody wasn't reading the rules, so whatever procurement wasn't done, so they're gonna disallow it. Just a minute,
Go
let me
ahead.
finish. So I think what the question is, if they disallow something like that, are we gonna be in debt for that amount, and are you then gonna try to, I have to say, sneak it out of the water fund without us knowing about it? Cause that's sure what that last deal felt like. Am I correct, Ms. Galloway? Is that what you were thinking about?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't find ourselves not being able to be reimbursed.
Oh, I'm sure enough lenient on this thing. Ms. Wheeler, go ahead. I'm just a nice chairman today. Mr. Griggs, I even allowed you to entertain a point of information. I'm loving this meeting. I'm loving it. Sometimes you have to set the rules aside and get to business. So, Ms. Wheeler, and then I might call for this vote if y'all allow.
Yeah, I just want to say again that this is not a rush to get you information. This is us providing you information, because as you have responsibilities to the constituents, so do we. We all do. We have the same responsibility here. So we just have, some of us just have more time to spend on certain things than other folks. And so I take personal, I think it's really unfortunate that Ms. Fields is allowed to say disparaging things about Ms. Wilcox and about administration, about these critical T-shirts. And even though it's not a cussing or it's not some other profanity, it is still a disparaging remark that should not be tolerated among this council, nor just like I should not be saying those things. We're all here for the same purpose, and I would ask that would not be allowed to take place.
You want that stricken from the record, as they say in court, but I looked at it, and the reason I didn't deal with it is because I look at it as in a professional capacity versus a personal attack. I looked at it as professional. So on that one, point well taken. Ms. Fields, they referring to when you were saying something about meeting with Ms. Wilkes, saying everything is critical and whatever, and that type of thing. Yeah, well, the sneak pop. So we hear it, we so noted, and so you got them riled up, and I think that, you know, you have to be careful. When it came at me about sharing, I kind of take offense. So now we passed that. The motion on the floor, I'm trying to get Mr. Newsom back smiling. Look, he didn't like them little clicks at them, but y'all better get tough skin like Mays. I can handle it. I see them hands up, and I'm trying to call for a vote on the motion, but can't ignore them hands. It was Mr. Griggs and Miss Galloway's hands. So before I call for the vote on the motion, what is the conversation? Mr. Griggs, Miss
Okay.
Galloway?
In section 10, I'm not sure I follow this. I see the word forgiveness in here.
What page are you on?
Page
Page
10.
9.
Oh.
I need some sort of an explanation of this section 10.
Page 9, section 10, you looking for interpretation? Page 9, section 10. Okay, it says bondholders' rights, receiver, the registered owner or owners of the project plan bond representing an aggregate not less than 20% of the entire principal. What you trying to find out about section 10?
I don't understand the 20% of the entire principal amount net of any principal forgiveness. That part I don't understand. And I've got a little bit of it. I don't
Okay,
understand
whoever it
section-
is saying by suit, action, mandamus, which is a legal court proceeding, or other proceedings, protect and enforce the statutory lien upon the net revenues. So this section at the beginning is given, I'm gonna call it somewhat of a legal standing. It's giving the registered owners of the project plan bond an opportunity to sue and take action from its beginning reading, but I better read some more, cause you can't read half and just give a thing for all. So we know that part is in there.
One part that I don't understand is the less than 20% of the entire principal amount thereof then outstanding,
Well,
net
look,
of any principal forgiveness.
okay, well, look at it as not less than 20%, of the aggregate, not less than 20%. So, I don't know if that's saying less or more, but you gonna have not less than 20% of the entire principal amount to have this type of standing, to bring that type of suit or mandamus or other proceeding.
I think the way it's written, the way I interpret that, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's giving certain rights to those that have not less than 20% of the outstanding debt, right? So if you think about it, we're gonna float $80 million worth of forgivable loans. But again, we have to use standard bond language, standard bond processes, standard bond rules and laws. And so there are certain rights that are given to those that hold 20% or more of the outstanding principal on the bond. So if you read, the owners, the owner or owners of the project plan bonds representing an aggregate not less than 20% of the entire principal amount thereof. So outstanding principal, you got 80 million in principal that's outstanding.
10% is 8 million, 20 is 16 million. 10% gonna be 8 million.
So 20 is 16.
Be 16.
Yeah,
Right.
16
So what I'm
million.
saying, is that those bondholders that exceed that threshold and have a certain right or series of rights based on what section 10 is talking about.
Ms.
So
Galloway,
that's what it
you
says,
have,
owner of bond.
Ms. Galloway, you had something, but I don't know if you done, Mr. Griggs, after that, Ms. Galloway.
Ms. Williams, can you give me a different interpretation of that? No? Okay. All righty.
That's giving some legal standing. Ms.
Mr.
Galloway.
Mr. Newsom, would it be fair to say that, even though it's gonna be forgivable, is it gonna be a monthly payment that we have to make?
This is gonna behave the same way that the current, remember, 40 million right now is structured as a forgivable loan.
I don't know how that's working.
Okay,
A lot
so-
has gone on, so I'm just trying to run both here. And so I wanna just stick to the 80 million
Right.
based on information right now and today.
Uh-huh.
Is there monthly payments
Mhm.
that we will pay? Okay. The other thing that I just wanna say to the residents, just so you know, I just wanna read this for the record. Right of referendum The registered electors of the city have the right to file a petition for referendum with respect to the revenue bonds described in the first paragraph of this notice. The revenue bonds will be issued without a vote of the electors unless a petition requesting such vote signed by not fewer than the lesser of 10% of the voters or 15,000 registered electors of the city is filed with the city clerk within 45 days after the publication of this notice. If such petition is filed, the revenue bonds cannot be issued without an approving vote by a majority of qualified electors of the city voting on the question. So for those constituents that are concerned, I just want you to be looking for the notice in the paper.
Ms. Galloway, when you read or do something like that, I mean, I can't say what to do, but I would usually turn around and look right at that camera and wave at it. But let me say this, we did do that type of petition or referendum on the KWA, and we didn't reach our goal. We wanted to put it on the ballot, so that's, I don't know if it's standard language, but that'd be language in bond stuff. I appreciate the dialogue, and y'all should know you must abolish the 5-minute rule. Now, is there any more discussion on the motion to postpone this for 2 weeks to Finance Committee meeting? Am I supporting, did I state the motion right? I'm not gonna vote to postpone it 2 weeks to Finance Committee meeting. So let's now call for the vote since we've discussed it. All in favor of postponing this 2 weeks to Finance? Well, no, I'm not gonna do a point of information. I'm gonna stop what I'm doing and give you the floor. Mr. Griggs, is it something you would like to say?
You said something, oh gosh, repeat what you just said.
I said that I'm not gonna vote to postpone it 2 weeks to
Should we all tell
Finance.
each other how we're gonna vote?
If you want to, it's proper in discussion, if you choose to. You can discuss it and say how you, no, you can say in a discussion if you're gonna vote pro or con, that's fair. Is there any more discussion, Mr. Griggs? I'm waiting to hear you say what y'all gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna proceed then. All in favor of postponing this 2 weeks to Finance Committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, the motion fails, and she wants a show of hands, but I'm not gonna let her be a council person. That vote was 3 yea and 4 no. That's what you can record, 3 yea. Okay, then she is now an official council person asking for a division of the house through me.
What number?
So all in favor, before I get beat up, all in favor, raise your hand. All in favor of the motion to postpone for 2 weeks, raise your hand. You see it? All opposed, raise your hand. So the vote was 3 yea, 4 no, and you can see who these people are. Okay? So now we will proceed with a motion either to go to special affairs or to council. That's the motion I would entertain. And we gotta be careful with these numbers. So I want it out of committee. I want it moved to special affairs or to council. And is there somebody, is Ms. Worthing?
I make a motion that we postpone this to special affairs.
Is there a second? Look like we back to the chairman. Oh, we got a second from Mr. Griggs, and I'm eager for discussion. Ms. Galloway.
Okay, I just wanna say to my colleagues that, special affairs turning long, and there's probably gonna need to be, a motion made to start special affair earlier so that we can have our council meeting at a timely time of 5:30. And so with everything that's being sent to special affairs, there's no way that we are going to be able to handle this in 1 hour. So as you guys so freely
So,
move
Ms.
things, I
Galloway.
want you to understand that. Wait,
What-
and then the other piece of that is.
Before you go to that, what
Mhm.
you think about that, Ms. Brown?
I think she has a good idea.
Okay, continue, Ms. Galloway.
And the other piece of that is, if it doesn't pass to go to special affairs and it doesn't pass to go to council, then does it stay on on finance?
Now, let me say this.
It drops on.
Yeah, let me say this.
Sorry,
Yeah, go back to finance,
okay.
yeah. In the discussion, we'll discuss that. I'm gonna try to hope people move it to special affairs because they can always move it back. But if it's really sincere questions that need, I think the wording, proposal is a good compromise. But I don't wanna interfere with the discussion as chair until we get to that point. Were you finished, Ms. Galloway?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else, Mr. Griggs?
I don't, the two main things for postponing was to get the answers about, the two answers that Fields and Galloway said. What were those? What were your two main concerns?
Well, I think.
Forgiven in writing and time to complete. I don't think it's gonna take administration 2 weeks to answer those two questions.
Well, I hope you'll vote on Ms. Worthing and, my motion, or whoever you seconded to move it to special affairs. Ms. Fields, I hope you'll do it too, because we still would have an opportunity to move it back. Ms. Fields?
Well, I would just like to make a suggestion that whoever is making these motions to move these things to special affairs, that they themselves volunteer to do the work that's required to research these questions out. Just a suggestion.
And that's why I say, if you tell me the specific question, I would ask the administration to try to have the specific answer by special affairs. But, we can get there. So I'm I'm like you. I'm hoping that this vote gets a vote of 5. I'll be voting to move it to special affairs with the wisdom to know it can move forward or backwards, hoping that these questions will be answered in the interim, one-on-one, or if you tell me publicly, I'll ask publicly for the answer. So we'll see what happens. Ms. Galloway, after this vote, we'll circle back on your request to start a little earlier. Ms. Worthing, in all fairness, let me go to him and then to you. He flashed his hand up. He moved a little slow sometime, but I did catch a glance of it there. Mr. Griggs.
Yeah, I don't think I will support, postponing this for 2 weeks. I don't see why we can't go ahead and move it with city council
Point of
and
information.
have those two
Point of
questions answered.
information.
Yeah, the motion to, is that your point of information? You wanted him to know that the motion to postpone it 2 weeks have failed. So now we're moving it forward toward council to special affairs.
Okay.
And then from special affairs, maybe to council. So we still moving in the right direction based upon this motion
But
that's
when
on
is
the
special
floor.
affairs?
Monday. And council is Monday.
All right.
Any more discussion on the motion to move it to special affairs, Ms. Worthy?
Well, administration has said that they'll have the answer and they'll give us that information on Monday, and like you said, if it's not there, we can always postpone it longer, but I think this kind of satisfies everybody, so hopefully it'll pass, that's all.
Well, let's see. This is a motion to move it forward to special affairs. All in favor signify by raising your hand. All opposed? So it moves to special affairs by motion on a vote of 5-2. So we'll see this on the agenda Monday. Now, this wasn't the last resolution, it's an add-on. And so can you bring that on forward? Then, Ms. Galloway, I think we need to circle back to your request that you and Ms. Brown seem to agree on. I'm not opposed to it. But that means folks gonna have to post stuff before 4:30. What time you thinking, Ms. Galloway? Ms. Brown, what time y'all thinking? What time you thinking, Ms. Galloway? What time you thinking special affairs should start?
3:30.
Okay, right now, I'm gonna do this as add-on number one. Somebody help me with this. Do I need to name this add-on number one? Is this add-on number one? So this is add-on number one, a resolution appointing Jeff Keane as Information Technology Director. And I'm sure we gonna get some information on this, so before I entertain a motion, or unless a council person wanna move on this, I'll wait to hear from the administration, but when I see a council person move in this meeting, they take precedence, and I've seen movement. Mr. Griggs?
Yeah, where's the job description and, resume?
It's already been approved, you all have first and second reading of this, I think the second reading, you all adopted by ordinance, and last Monday, then the last meeting, the last council meeting.
I don't remember this name, and I don't
Not a
remember.
resume.
The job description was adopted by ordinance, we are now saying that this person is going to be appointed to meet the requirements of that job description.
So,
Does this person have a resume?
Okay, I can do that, yes.
so,
Just so you know, he's been serving as the interim IT director.
so Janelle, you believe that's a fair statement about the job descriptions and stuff, but we don't know?
It was in, it was
It was in
approved
there,
last
so we
week
got
at council.
enough people consensus, and look like Ms. Brown, Ms. Fields, they know. So, Mr. Griggs, yeah, we done did the job description. Continue, Mr. Griggs, you got the
Okay,
floor.
Is he the person that will be in, totally responsible for the city website?
When you say maintaining it, keeping it up,
I see.
outsourcing, maintaining it, the content also goes through the communications director. So when you say, I just want to understand what you mean by the city website.
I've heard some complaints about the city website, certain things can be fast, but I need to go back and review my notes.
Okay, well, there, I mean, there's a couple of things, he's responsible for oversight of any of the supports the maintenance of it. Content isn't necessarily his responsibility.
It's contracted.
The content, yes, but the content of what's on the website isn't his direct responsibility.
Ms. Fields, you got the floor.
I think it's really inappropriate to be bringing this resolution before council at this point in time because we have yet to receive the legal opinion that was requested from Ms. Wheeler about has the mayor already exceeded her number of appointments and her interpretation of the charter, which there was some indication that various council people had read it and didn't agree with the kind of off-the-fly interpretation we were given. So until we receive that, why the heck would we be approving an appointment when we already don't, we have the question, has the mayor exceeded her appointments? So I think we really need to postpone this until we get that legal opinion and answer to that, at the minimum.
Ms. Worthy? I wanna hear from Ms. Worthy first.
I would also agree with that. Is this like a posted position? Is this something that's normally been appointed? IT director? Is that appointed by the mayor? Like, how is this one?
See, the charter changed in January.
Oh,
So because of that, there are certain things that usually didn't come here that have to come here.
Ms. Galloway, if Ms. Worthing is done.
well, I have another question.
Well, go ahead. You got the floor.
For the IT director, do they also do, like the phone service? Okay, 'cause I myself have tried to call like planning and development, and I can't get into Kevin or Suzanne, whoever I'm trying to call. How do we go about?
So if I'm gonna very quickly, but I do need to make a very important point here.
Okay.
Okay, so we are in the middle of a sourcing engagement where we're looking at a complete upgrade of the citywide phone system. Okay, because it's desperately needed. The phones are out of date.
Yeah.
But let me bring this point, use that as a segue to bring this up. Now, I get that the back and forth about does the mayor have this right to do this appointment? But we have a serious staffing issue in the city, okay? It is getting worse, it's not getting better. We need to get leadership positions established. This position, for whatever reason, predates all of us, has not been filled. This has been an interim position for 2 years. I need to get him in his position so that I can fill the positions that he kind of supporting with the systems analyst. So he's a systems analyst, which is now serving as an interim IT director. Once he gets moved up, then I can hire systems analysts and can actually start filling some of these positions. But, you know, unfortunately, I guess, for whatever reason, you know, there's animosity against that. But going back to your point, for resume,
Hold up.
he's been serving as an
Hold up,
interim IT director for 2 years.
Mr. Newsom, we got a point of information. What's your point, Ms. Gill?
What is the animosity that he's referring to?
No, I'm talking about I shouldn't use the word animosity. I
Okay.
apologize. I will withdraw that.
Okay.
I will say concern about the mechanics around, appointments. So let me restate that. I'm glad.
See, that was a fair point of information because that's what we've been talking about with
But I do
others.
want to make another point, which is I've already had this discussion with the city attorney, and she has you know, provided support that we are created to do this. So.
I think Ms. Worthing still got the floor.
I don't know, I mean, you may feel comfortable, but it's not your role to feel comfortable about the appointments, it's council's role to feel comfortable. And, the city attorney says one thing, and then other attorneys say another thing, and so, to me, it's not clear.
Mr. Mitchell, I'm gonna ask you to leave if you ain't careful, but I don't want to, cause I like you, but you gotta be cool.
The charter definitely needs to be, I mean, it is a legitimate, request to clarify this charter to make sure we're following it correctly. And I don't think that's animosity or trying to cause problems. Once again, as Ms. Galloway stated, whenever we want to clarify or understand or question, it seems that there's pushback, and it's like we're the bad people, trying, you see what I'm saying?
And I withdraw the word.
Yeah, and I get that, you changed it, but, I mean, we definitely feel it, not just from you, but others. And it's really just that we wanna do our jobs correctly and have it outlined. It's the same thing with any other job, you wanna make sure you're following it correctly. And the charter, I mean, it changed, we need clarification, and so I'm not clear yet, and that's just me.
I see you, Miss Wheeler, but I gotta first go to Miss Galloway unless she willing to yield to you, and
Well, I
then,
have a question for her, so maybe.
okay, so y'all
And I'll
go
yield to her
ahead.
and take it back, is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, Ms. Wheeler, how far off are we on getting your legal opinion of the, appointments?
Well, that was just last week at the council meeting, so I haven't received a referral. And in addition to that, in the interim, if you were on the email that came from one of the charter commissioners, there was a little bit of a back and forth. From one of the, it was sent to all of you.
I read it.
So you have that information.
But I don't want.
No, I know, but I'm saying I don't have that. But I'm just also providing you with some other information that you do have in your possession, that you can read and refer on your own to what I argue in my email. So I'm saying you have a document in your possession and in an email that also cites back to the charter that everyone has here too, so you can read it for yourself.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is this, is that, and I can't think of his name, forgive me for that, but
Jim Richardson.
yeah, he sent an email and I asked him a direct question. I said, so what is your opinion? Because I already have my opinion on these particular positions and that the mayor is not over that. And like I said, I haven't did a formalized answer yet, but what I'm saying is this, is that we have a few things that I believe are discrepancies. After that conversation, I asked Mr. Thompson? Richardson that question. He then emailed me separately without you guys on it and said, hey, why don't we sit down and meet about this? Okay? So he reached out to me
after I asked him that direct question about, what, if, like I said, if you're saying something different, then tell me directly what you think, okay? And then I know that Councilman Fields, which I also appreciate too, she has sent some, charter commentary to try to help with filling in the gap. And all that information is appreciated because sometimes it does help to try to figure out what were they thinking at the time. You do it in the law all the time. There's commentary in the rules that tell you the interpretation of what it is that you're trying to understand, such as a Michigan compiled law or any other type of document that you're looking at. And I read that too, and it did not provide, unfortunately, it did not provide any more clarity. I wish it did, but I did read through that section as well. So, like I said, the bottom line is that, I don't have that yet, but in the interim, I immediately responded to what was sent to me. And also, I have a meeting with Mr. Richardson tomorrow, that we have scheduled. But again, there are certain things that just don't line up in the charter because of the way the charter is written. Thank you. I just want to say for the record, Mr. Richardson is one of 9 people that worked on that charter. And so his interpretation isn't the answer to all. And so usually when there are decisions that are made, just like on this council, there is a collaboration of mindsets. And so to take one person and ask them to interpret what all 9 people said, in my opinion, is not something that I'm willing, and Jim is in my ward, and I respect him, and I talk to him. But he is not the deciding factor on all 9 of those charter members. Secondly.
First, before you go to the second one, probably, if you look at the legal department, and I can't speak for them, but they probably gathering information. When they give an opinion, it better be their opinion versus Jim Richardson. So whatever they do in the research and communication, just like Mr. Murphy is ready to chime in, but go ahead.
Right, but my concern with that
You got the
is,
floor.
and again, I want to say for the record, that this council, not previous councils, this council is responsible for trying to navigate through that very difficult interpreting charter.
And we must make decisions,
We
5
must.
or more here.
Exactly.
We can take in information, but the buck stops
And
here.
that's true, but my concern is, and this is no disrespect, it just seems like when you're trying to get information, there is a frustration on behalf of everybody. And even the attorney opinion, in asking questions, there's almost a disdain for how dare you ask questions to get fair interpretation. Yes, she is the attorney, but I too am part of a legislative branch where I'm trying to interpret as well, because we still are responsible for that as well. As a matter of fact, she just mentioned to some of my colleagues about this $80 million bond. You have access to it, read it. All the information that you have is in there. And she's our legal representation. So all I'm saying, and it seems like as soon as we ask for outside counsel in an effort to maybe get some answers, that's met with resistance too. And so I think that, at least on my behalf, I'm trying to navigate properly. Because the question becomes, if all of these new appointments of 13 people, because some are department heads, some are executive, the question becomes, if there's a change of leadership, do all of these people find themselves in a situation where they could be terminated? Because if they all serve at the will of the mayor, that's exactly what happens. A new mayor comes in and they decide that they want their own people. Whereas some of these people, if they were hired on, they would be proofed from political decisions that are made. Now, I'm going to support, I would support Jeff because I know that he's been doing this for 2 years. But he's been doing it for 2 years. And so to act as though all of a sudden when we got questions about the appointments and that now all of a sudden I need to appoint him, I was asking about his appointment when we were doing budgets. And so I just don't want to be treated with resistance because there's a desire to really understand a charter that we're all navigating through, and not only are we all navigating through, but our very legal representation in the city is saying that the charter is confusing. And so if it's confusing for our attorney, and she's trying to gather information, why, when I try to gather information, I'm met with such resistance? And so I appreciate Jeff. He's been working hard. I'm sure he needs some help. And so I just want that to be said, but I don't want to feel bad about trying to navigate through a charter that nobody has had to work through before. And that's all I have to say.
I got, 3 council members who's ready to say something. I got Miss Winfrey Carter, I got Miss Fields, Mr. Griggs, in no certain order, and then Mr. Murphy. But my position is this: y'all might get some action with me on postponing, and I'm looking at what this is. But let me ask a question. Is it a motion on the floor?
No.
Okay, so there's no motion on the floor yet. We discussing where we gonna head with this. Ms. Fields, let me go Miss Winfrey Carter, then you, and Mr. Griggs. Mr. Murphy, I'm gonna allow you to say what you have to say. Miss Wheeler said something too, cause y'all riling them up, but before I go to Miss Wheeler, I'm gonna chime in, and then we gonna try to entertain a motion. Let's see if we can get there, cause after this add-on, I think we'll be wrapping Finance Committee meeting up. Who's chairing governmental ops? Is it the vice?
Point of information, President Winfrey said that legislative was next, but
That's-
that's you guys.
It is legislative
Okay.
next, and then governmental ops. I
No,
was
you,
mistaken.
sure,
No, I would rather you the vice. We follow protocol, I would rather you. But Ms.
No.
Winfrey Carter got the floor.
Now, for this particular position, is this and I'm reading appointed, but also, I think I was listening to the council meeting from last, 2 Mondays ago about the deputy director of, public works. Now, I noticed too that that position said appointed, however, that position was it went through human resources. So that position actually was not an quote-unquote appointed position, okay? But this position is an appointed position, am I right? This position did not go through,
Yeah, well, I mean, you all, we adopted an ordinance, you guys adopted an ordinance, but the job description itself was approved, so I believe.
Human resources sometimes do vet them in
Right.
order to see if they
right,
got the
right, but
quality.
it wasn't posted. Maybe I should rephrase.
Yes.
Posted.
Yeah, that's your-
Was this posted?
No.
Okay, but that deputy, deputy DPW, position, it was posted.
That was.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, cause I read the posting, okay. So that was, I think that led the question to the number of appointments and blah, 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 right? Okay. But this is just, actually, this person is just, he's been in that position for 2 years, so yeah.
Serving as in-
Yeah, so I'm
Well,
gonna vote to, approve this.
You make a point, Ms. Winfrey Carter, as it relates to posting appointments.
Right.
And that's what we were trying to clear up. We don't want to give appointments that don't have to be appointments and eat up them spots. I
Right.
think it was Ms. Fields, if you done. You done?
I am.
And then Mr. Griggs, and then I want to try to speed this thing up, Mr. Murphy. I want to speed it up, and let's take some action and keep it moving and get out of this Finance Committee meeting. And Ms. Worthing would be next with legislative. I said Mr. Griggs, but it's really Ms. Fields.
Yes.
Ms. Fields.
Okay, in response to Ms. Winfrey Carter's comments, the ordinance that we passed with that job description for deputy DPW, deputy director,
Mhm.
it said appointed.
Right, Yeah.
But the job was posted
Mm-hmm.
as an exempt position. Okay, so when a job is posted as an exempt position, it's not an appointment. Okay?
Right.
So there's conflict with how HR is functioning. They're not being consistent, and there's conflict with what the administration is bringing to us. So, I do not believe that deputy directors of anything have ever been before or need to be now appointed
Right.
positions. That's where it did start, you're correct. That's where the question started. Because they're bringing us all of these appointments for positions that actually should be posted and hired in the classified service. Even if it's an exempt position, it's still part of, in some way, the classified service. And I would say that we owe it to the residents of this city who voted for this charter. They're the ones who voted for this charter, and they're the ones who voted for us, to follow the charter. The problem is, the charter as written, there are many conflicting areas. It is not clear. And as an exercise, I sent, referencing those charter sections, I sent this out to, I don't know, 3 or 4 attorneys I know, not city attorneys, attorneys I know, people just I know that have been involved in stuff, and I said, could you read this and tell me, in your opinion, how many appointments do you think the mayor has? I'll tell you, I got back as many answers as I sent out questions. So it is not clear. And I don't even know when we get the legal response from Ms. Wheeler. I don't know, because I haven't read it yet. But I think this is an area that really might clearly require some outside attorneys representing council. I don't know, but I think it's a very important issue, for not only now, but for in the future. But as I talked about last time, it's important whether somebody is appointed or whether they are hired. Because I think it was Ms. Galloway who pointed out that if you're appointed, you serve at the pleasure of the mayor. The mayor goes, you're gone. Unless the next mayor wants you in. It's not about this particular mayor or this particular council. It's about the charter and us coming to an agreement on an interpretation of the charter. So I just think that this is very premature, and since there's no motion on the floor, I would like to move that this resolution be postponed until we get an opportunity to receive that legal opinion from Ms. Wheeler and have some further conversation about it in, I believe, Government Ops is the correct committee.
It's been a motion made to postpone this till Government Ops. Government Ops will be the next meeting or two.
2 weeks.
Okay, so it's been a motion made to postpone this 2 weeks to governmental ops. I think that's a proper committee, but before we discuss it, it's in order to ask, is there a second to that motion?
Is legislative a better committee or Government Ops?
I would ask, is there a second to that
Government
motion?
Ops. Government Ops, okay.
I second.
Okay, Ms. Worthing second that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mr. Griggs, you were in line for the floor.
Okay, evidently, we paid him $154,000 over the last 2 years. Is this correct?
He's talking about salary times 2 years. So roughly speaking, I can't attest to how much money he made in the first one.
Well, at 37,
I know.
77.
What I'm saying, I can't attest off the top of my head how much money he made the first year. But yes, that's roughly speaking correct.
I believe that money.
He's a member of the staff. So he promoted from systems analyst to member of my people that serves in that position. Yeah, he's a member of the staff.
I think that's a legitimate question. It comes from the general fund and the budget. When we do the budgets each year, we put money in there for IT people and whatever. So it's a legitimate question to ask where that money come from. So if we did a budget for that department, Mr. Griggs, that money would come from the budget that we approve for that department, just as we approve budgets for police department, fire, and everything else. Would that be a fair answer?
He was
Only
hired.
one to- yes, he was hired, and I only wanted just one quick clarification, he's paid out of 636,
Which is,
information services. So that, you know, all the.
so by me saying what I said, that included the 636?
No.
Oh, well, whatever it did, I thought I had it covered. It did. My interpretation, I included that in the 636. I'm just letting you beat me up. So it was budgeted in the 636 fund. That's where the money came from. Mr. Griggs, you still got the floor. You done? Okay, so is it anybody else wanted to flow? This is discussion on a motion to postpone 2 weeks to governmental ops. Ms.
I
Galloway?
just had a question. It didn't reference any fringes. Did she not get any fringes?
He gets fringes,
Actually, it doesn't.
his actual wages are paid out of 702.00. Yeah, you know, if the resolution doesn't state this, let me know, but what we have done in the past is we say where the earnings are coming from, and then the other ones follow from that, but he's paid, the way, the fringe piece of it is paid with the account number in that budget.
Right, usually, and maybe but usually it will say fringes because that affects the budget too.
No, I get what you're saying,
Okay.
I get what you're saying, I'm not disagreeing.
Okay, thank you.
Was this
But
the,
like I'm saying, the wages are paid out of 702.
Yep, I get that.
was this the guy who, did he have a, professional service agreement? Or he was getting
No.
paid wages?
He's
Just
getting
wages?
paid wages, yes,
Okay.
and just so
And
everybody
have-
knows, if I may, I'm
Have
sorry.
he came up through the ranks of the, department?
Yeah,
And
this
so
wasn't
that-
that guy that had that contract.
Okay.
That's what I was
Now,
gonna say.
let me say this, though. Mr. Newsom, I'm gonna try to live up to my word with Mr. Murphy. I'm gonna listen to you, but I'm ready to get to this. You had something to say, Mr. Newsom?
Oh, I'm done.
I thought you said you wanted to say something.
No, I just said the 636 piece with the fund. I think.
Yeah, I'm still disappointed about that 636. I thought that, because Mr. Murphy, you wanted to say something in the middle of this charter thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
Well, you got need to stand up.
I
That's
just wanted to
Quincy
speak on the
Murphy.
charter, for the appointments. From what I know and my interpretations, y'all can get an outside attorney or whatever interpretation y'all feel like y'all need to. But the mayor gets up to 13 appointments, 3, appointments that she can't move those. That's the city attorney, the treasurer, and also the human resources director. The other 5 appointments she get to create is department heads, such as Suzanne Woodcock position. She can create the police chief department. She can combine the police and the fire chief department. She get to create 5 department heads, however she wants to create them. And she also get 5 administrative staff appointments, such as branch and whoever else she so choose to create that. So total, she get 13 appointments. The only difference that we made in the charter, I think it was before it was only 8. Now it's up to 10, 13 altogether. The city attorney appointment is appointed by the mayor, but approved by city council, which was always still the thing. But the difference with the city attorney now, the mayor doesn't have the power to just get rid of the city attorney without the approval of city council. Those are the changes that I know. Now, if somebody else giving y'all any other interpretation, that's on them.
And so that's what I think Ms. Fields said, and I think Ms. Wheeler alluded to it, and I think you can get different interpretations. So if you're getting different interpretations, it doesn't matter whether we hired an attorney, we're gonna get an interpretation from that attorney. If she hired 2 different attorneys, you might get 2 different interpretations. So the bottom line is, that's why I think she wasn't being offensive when she said read it, because when I read it, I'm gonna get my own interpretation. You know, I'm hard-headed. I don't sometimes care what lawyers say, 'cause I think I can read and interpret just like a judge and a lawyer, but I ain't on the bench. So I do have no problem with the talk back and forth, but you know, I'm getting thick skin, and I'll tell y'all why later on in these meetings. And so if I can get thick skin on the administration side and on the council side, we gotta be able to talk about each other in a professional capacity, but no personal attacks. But we can talk about honing professional skills. We got a motion on the floor to postpone the governmental ops. Ms. Galloway,
I would like to make, I guess, another formal request, because I heard Ms. Wheeler say she never got the referral asking for interpretation, so I don't know why.
I'm sorry, I just wanna say, because I'm not saying anything disparaging with Ms. Johnson, just that I haven't received it yet.
Right.
I just wanted that to be on the record, because I know they work very hard.
I know they do, I know they do, yes.
Yeah.
So,
But
so
the
without
rest of
objections,
mine-
that referral will
But the
be,
rest of mine is, I would like a list of those appointments, because I said on the record at our last council meeting that I was up to 15, because there were 2 that I didn't even include. I had forgot to include, chief, the police chief, right, and the deputy chief. And so I just would like to know what has been considered appointments,
Yeah.
because some have
the
said
deputy
appointments.
chief might not qualify.
Well, but they say appointment, and so just help clarify. You know what I mean? If it says appointment on the resolution, but it's technically not appointment, let's just say that.
And so I have no problem with, you know, let's say we get resolutions for appointments, and I don't know if we gonna start appointing exempt people after they've been interviewed, but what we wanna do, I think, in this new charter, some people don't blame Quincy and them charter revision commission people. I do, because they done had some stuff that's a little confusing, but they did a heck of a job. Every charter sometime need amendments and revisions. So I don't think we have to throw them under the bus all the way. But we can talk about amendments, and that's our responsibility, I think, to fix the charter in the places it need to be fixed, and then the people follow leadership. And so it is some things that we gotta really do. This has been a good meeting. I've seen Ms. Fields move. Was you still got the
Yeah, I
floor?
just got one more thing. I'd
Continue.
like to make a referral, to get a copy of what the residents voted on, where the appointments were concerned, just to be able to see.
They voted on the charter as a whole.
No. They originally voted on how many appointments of the mayor, which led to Darnell Early saying the city clearly wants to change the charter, which is where the charter revision
So let me ask this
committee
question.
came
Do
from.
you think you gonna find in the record a vote
No,
of the people
The
on how many
people did vote.
appointments?
They voted
Okay.
on whether they didn't appreciate getting rid of the ombudsman. I don't know if you remember that
I
election.
do remember the
Yeah, so
ombudsman.
that's the only thing that, because it's clear that we're going to have to do some critiquing maybe of the charter, but I'd like to see what the people voted on. Not what Darnell Early did, but what the constituency in this community voted on.
Well, we know they voted on the language of this last charter.
Well, I know,
That talks
but
about the
that was in a
13.
primary, yeah.
Yeah, I
But
know.
I'm just sticking to my request, thank you.
Those
You announce
requests
those
and
10 minutes
referrals and
later, so you
requests are
can-
ordered without objection.
Okay, thank you.
So that ain't a problem as long as they understand it. Now, if before we vote, was it something you was trying to say, Ms. Fields? Did I see you try to get my attention, yes
Nope.
or no?
I would
Okay, look,
like to vote on this, move ahead, get
the
through my things,
motion on the
be
floor
done.
is to postpone this appointment of Jeff King as Information Technology Director to governmental operations, the next governmental operations committee in 2 weeks. Anybody don't understand or any more discussion on that motion? if there's no more discussion on that motion, all in favor of postponing this appointment of Jeff King, the governmental, and wait, before I call for that vote, I didn't give my position.
Oh.
No, you should, go ahead, Councilman Mays.
See that, see that? Now, when I wait to the end as a good chairman and wait and let everybody, then I hear, oh God. Now, so I just should give up my seat, no opinions. My position is this, I'm not tripping off of postponing it. And I'm not tripping off of trying to crack the whip on the city attorney by postponing it to try to get us somewhere in the future what she thinks. So I ain't got no problem with this one. But I might want to approve this guy. Mr. Newsom, if this guy is acting as interim director and we approve him as the permanent, will his pay stay the same? Or do it go up?
So his pay would stay, his wages would stay the same. There is still a small question about, whether or not he would be compensated for standby, because it's standard for him to carry a B3, so we still have to work that out with him. But it's small, but his actual earnings will stay the same.
Okay, and my position is I don't like to hold up folks' money if they gon' whatever. So you can let him know that if I vote to postpone it 2 weeks, that ain't no reflection on him maybe not getting it.
I will communicate that.
Yeah, from my view, this ain't no motion to keep him from maybe not getting it. It's a motion to sort out some appointments.
Right,
And we need to know some of that as we use them and do. And so this one, I'm gonna probably support. And I'm supporting it in order to crack the whip a little bit on Madam City Attorney and this whole discussion about appointments, because I think it's necessary. Back in the day, I used to like for them to stay in the city of Flint versus wherever folks stay. So this is a necessary one for me. It's a friendly one. I'm gonna support it, but I don't know how many votes it'll get. So we'll see what happens, but tell Mr. King to hang in there.
Yeah.
Because I think that he might end up with the position, but we cracking the whip right now, and we'll see what happens. Maybe the motion will pass, maybe it'll fail. So, Ms. Worthing, I hate you didn't want me to chime in on this motion. I've now chimed in. This is a call for the vote. And I'm trying to get there too, so you don't move when in this, and I'm gonna turn over to Ms. Galloway, because I'm shaking in my seat as well. My position is this, it's a motion to postpone the governmental office. All in favor signify by raising your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. So the vote on this one was 5 yes and 2 no. And so this motion passes to postpone this appointment add-on number 1 until governmental hours. And the next governmental hours.
Mr. Chair.
Before you say, Mr. Chair, before I recognize anybody, I want to turn this over to Ms. Galloway because I'm running to the bathroom.
No, are we getting ready to, go ahead?
No,
just
You
got
on
new
the
business.
agenda,
I
you
got
know
it.
where we at on the agenda, you gotta be ready.
Almost.
Do you guys wanna close the meeting?
Yeah,
No,
Just 10-minute break.
aren't we at the
take
end
a
of the
10-minute
meeting?
break and come back here.
Yes.
Because, no, I already told him I have new business and I've got some referrals. And
Well, I mean, if you guys gotta take a 10 minutes, we
All
can
right.
take 5 minutes.
No.
No, it's
So
not.
I'm sorry, you making a
Recessed.
motion to
Can I make a motion?
What's your motion?
I make a motion that we have a 10-minute recess.
There's a motion on the
You
floor. for
support?
10 minutes. There's a support, is there any discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. 10 minutes, 8:25, you guys.
Alan, get my
Put your stopwatches on. Put your stopwatches on.
Well, I drink almost. Oh, we've been here for 3 hours?
Here, just grab spoke to my